Any adjustments?
You have just entered the twilight zone.
It's the outer limits. Oomba, oomba.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Sorry.
All right, so I'll repeat that. Are there any adjustments to the agenda, any changes? If not, is there a motion to approve today's agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner White. Is there support?
Support.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. So we have a motion and support. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We now have our public comment period, which is an opportunity for citizens to appear before the county board. Is there anyone who would like to speak today for public comment? Anyone who would like to speak? All right, if not, I have some information I would like to share for public comment. So on behalf of the Cook County Board of Commissioners, I want to sincerely apologize for the redistricting error that impacted 23 individuals, including Arvis Thompson, who is running for District 4 Commissioner. First and foremost, I want to acknowledge the inconvenience and the frustration this situation caused. We understand the significance of the mistake and how it has affected many people, and we take full responsibility for the error. County staff are committed to making sure both an improved process and procedures are in place when census redistricting occurs again. We've taken immediate steps to address the issue and prevent any recurrence in the future, and our goal is to ensure that such errors don't happen again, and we will implement stricter checks and additional safeguards. The public's trust is of utmost importance to us as a county board, and we deeply regret the distress that this has caused. We appreciate the understanding, and we work to improve our processes and hope the public watches this video and the video on our website of Auditor Treasurer Brady Powers and the explanation of what occurred. Again, I extend my heartfelt apologies for the error and the impact it had on all. Thank you. We'll move on at this point to our consent agenda. And are there any items a commissioner wishes to pull? Commissioner
I would like
Johnson.
to pull item C,
Item C.
the retirement of Dusty Nelms.
All right. And are there any other items a commissioner wishes to pull? All right. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda minus item C?
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Is there support?
Support.
Thank you, Commissioner Storley. We have a motion and support. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. We will move on at this point to discuss item C, and we'll turn it over to Commissioner Johnson.
Well, I guess I'm just curious what our plans are moving forward, since Dusty has quite a bit of institutional knowledge, and it says she's leaving in months, and it's an elected position. I would like to know how we are going to fill those gaps.
Madam Chair, she's not leaving till October 4th.
Correct.
Yeah.
But
Months.
So, I mean, that's a lot of time.
And we have an election coming up.
Yes.
I'm wondering what
Right,
our
yeah.
plan is.
Absolutely. So, Commissioner Johnson,
I think
this
the
is...
public is too.
This is something
Yeah.
that I have thought about a great deal as well, and one of the things that can occur is that an elected position can become an appointed position, but there is a process. I also see that Administrator Yorkie is here. Is there something you'd like to remark on?
Well, you're correct. I mean, there is an option in statute for this position to become appointed. We do have somebody who's expressed, Holly Schroeder, who's the assistant recorder, has expressed an interest in stepping into that role. And I think at least on an interim basis, we could appoint her. But there is a process for either permanently making it an appointed position, if that is the will of the board to do. And there are a couple of pathways that we can follow to accomplish that. One is simply through a resolution of the board. There's also a process that involves collecting petition signatures. So if voters want to effect that change, there's a process for them to do that. And I don't really, I mean, I just started to look into it, so I don't know the details of it, and I don't know if Brady and Molly have had much opportunity to look at that, perhaps not. But yes, we are going to have to grapple with that, and it was not our intention simply to put this on the agenda and not have a full board discussion about what the path forward is.
I would recommend to commissioners also that you take a look at the statute so you become familiar with the two different routes that can be taken, and then we'll put this on a future agenda, but not very far out. I think it is very important that we discuss it. All right. Thank you so much. Good discussion. Commissioner.
And I'm just wondering, and this probably is for Brady and the attorney, if we decide to continue as an elected position and the ballots have already been printed, what do we do? Do we just wait? Do we wait till the next election
It's not an election year for
for
these
that? Right.
positions.
So I just want to make
It's
sure
2
I
years in
understand the
Yeah,
process.
it's 2 years in the future
Okay.
before any of the 4 elected officers.
Okay,
Or
so then we
yeah,
would
so-
appoint until the next election. I just want to make sure
Sure.
I'm clear of what the process.
Yeah, and that's
Our
all laid
options are.
out in Minnesota statute. Again, I think really important for us to look at those statutes. Brady, anything else?
Not at this time. I think that's,
All right, we'll move on now to emergency management, and we see that Mike Keyport is here this morning. We're going to talk a little bit about the June 18th, 19th storm damage, response activities here in the county, and welcome. Thank you for coming this morning. And I see our highway engineer, Robbie Hass, is here as well, because he's going to be an integral part of this discussion. Thank you both.
Yeah, good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners, community members. As you all know, we've had for having a dry spell and no snow, we moved on into pretty rainy spring and into summer now. It causes very saturated grounds, and it doesn't take much water to cause damage. Right now, currently in the county, Schroeder Township reached out immediately and give me an estimate for Sugarloaf Road of almost just short of $200,000 at this point. The document that I supplied the commissioners with yesterday spells out that our threshold for the county is right around $25,000. So obviously we're over that. Also the understanding that there is damage to some snowmobile trails, and because grant funding does come through the county for grant and aid trails, them trails would also qualify. As of right now, I do not have a repair estimate for that, which I would need. If I could just explain the process, the document that I supplied you with explains the process in a nutshell, but for the community's sake, if I could just explain that process. About 10 years ago, the state started what they call their disaster assistance contingency account. And as of last year's legislation, they upped that. I don't know what the figure is, but they upped that, and it'll just be an ongoing fund. It's millions of dollars. Should we do, such as in 2019, I did a state declaration for Grand Portage. It was very seamless, and that's where that money came from. Because there's statewide flooding this particular year, the governor needs $10.5 million worth of damage statewide in order for him to go for a presidential declaration, with which then allows us to tap into FEMA funding. If he goes that route, then any damage occurred in Cook County or any county is 100% covered. If it doesn't make that threshold, and we need to go, if it's just a state declaration, then it's only at 75% covered, and we have to eat, or whichever agency has to eat the 25%. And I'll let Robbie speak to any damage that occurred on the county roads.
Yeah, we've talked about it on and off the past couple of days now. I know when Senator Housechild was up here, that was a topic of hot topic to discuss. Yesterday, we pulled together some figures. Thank you, Lisa, for doing that on some short notice. And right now, we're hovering right around $26,000. You could even say, $30,000 is where we're at right now as far as our effort to, clear trees that happened last week, to repair some washouts along the roads. I know there's a couple of culverts. The west end got hit more than the east end, but overall, we're on the whole, we're not bad. And so, I guess as a short summary, that's where we're at as far as the county is concerned.
Yeah, so our first step always is what I'll be requesting from the board today, whether it's a state or federal. Our first step in any disaster, if we know we're over that $25,000 mark, is for me to come forward and request a local state of emergency. And if it's on a Saturday afternoon, I can go to just the board chair and have that person sign off, and then you all would approve it at your next regularly scheduled meeting. This just happened to work out pretty good here. The state sets an event timeline, if you will. This event, the state started this event last Sunday, June 16th. The event won't end. In this case, they're waiting for the rivers to crest, the major rivers. So likely, depending on how much more rain we get, I guess. So this event may not end for another week, possibly. What that means for me or us as a county is that after that event ends, I have 30 days from that point to get all my paperwork in. I have to get all these estimates. It's called a preliminary damage assessment. But they want that. I take that back. I still have to do a preliminary damage assessment, because that's what the governor uses to make or break this 10.5 million. So after we declare, then I can submit to the state at least what damage I know right now, so it gives them figures. So they're just totaling up everything in all 87 counties, tribes, and cities, and if they make that threshold, then he will more than likely declare a presidential disaster. So that's my first step. And then I have them 30 days to fine tune, maybe more damage was discovered or other things, and that gives me a little wiggle room there to get the final numbers into the state, and then the state, and if it's FEMA, state and FEMA come out together right to the county here, and in this case we'll meet here, but we'll be meeting with the West End folks or anybody that has submitted damage. The Lutz and Trailbreakers are working on an assessment right now, so they would come with me and they would sit down and look at. In years past, when they got up here, they would physically go to these sites and look at them. With our good photography nowadays, they look at the photographs, they look at estimates from professionals, and they take our, I don't want to say take our word, but they do, and say this is, this is eligible, maybe this isn't eligible, and sit down and fine tune that. They put worksheets together, and then it's up to us, or up to like in Schroeder's case or the Lutz and Trailbreakers case, it's their duty to do the repairs. and show invoices and receipts as to that the work is completed, and when it is, that is submitted to the state, and once that's approved, then if it's a state declaration, then the 75% reimbursement is sent to the county. So that's in a nutshell how the system works. A reminder also that when it comes to Grand Portage, that they can go either way. Because they're a federally recognized tribe, they can go directly to the federal government. When they had damage in 2022, they actually went for BIA funding. So they can go either way, but they could come with us, and if they're over their threshold, we would actually kind of claim together, if you would. As you probably heard, the governor's been out and about and looking at all this damage, and the biggest thing, if I could tell you all and the community, is that, as you know, I have a one-man office, and people say, when's the county coming out? And obviously I do not have the capability to drive every road in Cook County, so that is why I rely on Robbie's crew and others to reach out to me. You have to reach out to me. I mean, if I hear an inkling of something, hey, I heard there was damage, I'm gonna go look and try to find the appropriate people. But at the time when these things are happening, I'm a busy person, and so I just want the community to know that. I would stand for any questions, but I would also, if anybody would like this state information as to how this process works, it's public information, and I'm very glad to share it or explain the process. And lastly, and this is a tough one for folks. I mean, you see on TV that when there's catastrophic disasters, hurricanes and such, you see FEMA's there even to help private households. And that works because there's so much damage. I believe that it's right around 500, but in the state of Minnesota, in order for private households to be covered by any type of reimbursement, there has to be over 500 homes damaged all at the same time. And it's never happened in my 13 years. So sadly, there's not much out there for private homeowners and or businesses, with the exception of the Small Business Association through the government does offer very low interest rate loans. And I can get folks that information if they're interested in it too.
And I would suggest that one of the things we can do is the information regarding disaster assistance for infrastructure, all of those documents, we could embed them into our minutes for today and put them on the county website so they're available for the public to look at. That'll make it a bit easier for you, so you don't perhaps have to field as many calls, but I think it's important to get that information out there.
For sure, yes.
Okay. Other questions? Commissioner Mills?
I really appreciate you bringing up the private versus public damage. So for that 500, is that through the state or just in our community?
The entire state.
Yeah.
But
I'd be really, based on the pictures I've been seeing, I'd be surprised if 500 homes were not.
Right, yeah. And even the major flooding in the Rainy River up in I Falls last year,
Yeah.
they did such a good job of preparing and sandbagging. There was not one private home damaged up there in that major flood.
Yeah. Wow.
It just, people are resilient in
Yep.
Minnesota.
Yep. Well, and the question I had though is like, how can we resolve private property being damaged because of a lack of public infrastructure adequacy?
Right, that's a brilliant question, and I do not have the answer.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Storley?
Thank you. Well, a week ago tonight, my rain gauge gave out at 1/2 foot. So probably received about 7 inches in Lutsen and way beyond in Schroeder. I mean, we were really hard hit. I did not realize what had happened. I didn't get a notification until Thursday morning when I was heading down to Duluth about Sugarloaf Road. So I just peeked in, I couldn't even get in. So I've sent pictures to Mike. Also, what I call the Sawtooth Creek, which flows past the outfitters across the highway into Bluefin. Lived with that for years. Not much you can do. You can dredge it out, but then it fills in, and then you get a rainstorm, then it all starts over again. So that's probably the two biggest areas in the West End. However, I'm getting an update on the Rapidan Dam, and if that goes, we'll probably qualify for FEMA, because we have Cook underwater. It is receding some, but if the Rapidan goes, we'll be qualified probably for FEMA then, which, like you say, wait a couple of weeks to see what happens
Right.
with everything. If it does settle, I hope it doesn't, because that will really affect people downstream in Blue Earth County. But, then I received calls from folks who had their driveways totally washed out into Lake Superior. Is there anything you can help me with? And I said, just hold on. We have to assess all the damage and get our emergency manager on board here with us to see what can happen, but we have to wait with the weather. Even last night, we had, not a lot, but we had enough rain that all my flowers were well watered again, but we have to wait. More rain coming in Thursday night and Friday. So it's just one of those really, really wet areas of the weather, and so anyway, I just tell the people, just hold on, and to get an estimate in from the Tofty Creek is a better word for it. We never had a name for it. It was just Tofty Creek or Sawtooth Creek, but we'll just do that. Wait until we get that information to you. I'm not sure about the billing or the amount for Sugarloaf Road. I've never heard 200,000. Is that the latest? I heard 100.
Yeah,
80 to 100.
I got an estimate from Isaac Hansen, yep.
Wow.
100,
okay.
it's 191,000 something.
Because it starts, I don't know if you're familiar with Sugarloaf, it comes around to Kramer Road. About a third of the bottom is what affected from Sunset Drive. So when I went out there to drive, wouldn't you know, there was a gravel truck coming at me. So we had to joggy around a little bit, but I couldn't even find a place to pull over. I had to back way up to Sunset Drive to let him go by. So what you see right now is some of the repairs as Supervisor Martinson and a bunch of people got out there to try to help people get out of their driveways, So it's tiny bit better now, but wasn't done.
And I would ask everyone, and I did when Sharon from Schroeder did email with the estimates and such, I did make the reminder, and I'll say it again, that any work that's done like that is considered emergency work.
Yeah.
And that qualifies. So if you're out there covering up a culvert so it's passable and safe to keep the public safe, that needs to be documented.
Mm-hmm. And MnDOT has quite a job, and DNR has quite a job, because part of the Gitchigami Trail that wasn't surfaced, I went out and took pictures of that and sent it off to our Gitchigami Trail people. In fact, they're up here today looking at the trail that they just completed about a year ago from Grand Marais down to Cutface. So a lot of people around and a lot of stuff going on. But I appreciate the way that then this would be handled with you and the township and all of us getting together when we know what we're going to apply for.
Right, yeah,
So I appreciate that.
for sure.
And Robbie, I appreciate what you're doing too, because I did call you. Help!
Thank you.
Okay,
And
we move on.
And I would like, if I didn't have time to call them back, but I would like at least pictures and rough estimates of any private property.
Oh, okay.
If you know folks that were
Yeah.
damaged, and I know one that we just were playing phone tag, but
In
I
Schroeder?
did leave, so I would like that information.
Oh.
And it's, because it's only a handful in our county, but bigger counties, and this is our government and I can't help it, but they when it's a lot of private homes, they actually use them figures to get the state threshold, even though they're not gonna give them any funding to help repair their home, which is not
Okay.
right. But
Well, you know what, neighbor helps neighbor in a situation like this. When I came back on Thursday, late afternoon, there were people helping a gentleman who totally lost his driveway and trying to get out there and shovel whatever they could to make a path. I was at a meeting on Wednesday, and in Lutzen, and a couple of gals walked to the meeting because they couldn't get out, but they could walk out. So it's that kind of stuff that you're saying that you'd like to have a photo of. Maybe by now there wouldn't be any damage, though. What do you do?
yeah, but even if I had, everybody takes photos
Yeah,
when something
yeah.
happens,
Okay.
and even a rough,
Okay.
I think it's gonna cost
They
me
can-
$15,000 to fix it. or
They can tell
whatever.
that it's been repaired, so most of that
Exact-
driveway has been affected.
Right, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And backing up to Grand Portage, two things, they did not have any damage, with the exception of 4 trees on my pole barn, but, but I did want to, while you are here, to let you know, if you have not heard, that Grand Portage has hired an emergency manager. So that's really good news. And I forgot to send Commissioner White an invitation, but it's a state-funded position. Hopefully, the state's coming up next Tuesday to do a meet and greet with myself and her. Her name's Ruth Vogel. And the deputy director of HSEM and my regional state person are coming next Tuesday, hopefully, if they can get away from flooding and do a meet and greet. So that's good news for me.
Other questions? Commissioner Johnson?
Yeah, can you tell me about the process? If the state does declare an emergency, and if we get FEMA funding, what's the process mean for the county in this building?
Same thing as I said. What's going to happen, the state is still involved because, the state recovery department will get a hold of me, and I'll get a hold of whomever need be, and we'll set up an appointment, and we'll meet here at the courthouse likely. I mean, we could meet in the West End too if it's just West End people. And we'll sit down with a couple FEMA representatives and a couple state representatives, and again, we'll go through this paperwork, the estimates, and they will look at it, make sure everything eligible, tell us what is eligible, what isn't. They put together what they call project worksheets, and that's what we will be going off of. That, yep, you had this much emergency work covered, here's the cost for repair, and then it's up to, again, the entities to do the work.
So are you responsible for the paperwork that gets done and making sure the reimbursements are happening? Is that all through your department?
Yes. We have what is called Web EOC. So like the declaration that we will do today, as soon as I have signatures on it, I will upload it to Web EOC, and it'll be for the whole state to see. Well, not the whole state, anybody that can get on Web EOC. So then the Plymouth.
EOC means?
Emergency operations?
Emergency
I know, but just-
operations.
I knew
Yeah,
that one.
Yeah,
Okay.
so, sorry. And then the next step, as soon as I upload that, then my next step is I'll be doing the preliminary damage assessment online, and that will be uploaded. So the state just goes online, and that's how they look at what, and not every state, county was affected in this case, but, so, it's a process, but.
And I guess,
But most of the work we do, it used to be all on the emergency manager. I'd have to go out there and I would have to get estimates. And they have changed it, so it is, like in Robbie's case, he has to do that footwork. And then through me, goes to the state.
and so as far as the reimbursements go, I'm assuming that involves Brady's staff. Is that correct, or do you just?
Not necessarily.
Okay,
Not necessarily like in Robbie's case 2 years ago, that money comes into the county but goes right to his account where it came. And like in the township's case, it won't go through the county. I'm assuming it'll go right to the township.
okay, I just want to make sure
Yeah.
everybody knows their roles and what they have to do, and, thank you.
Other questions? Commissioner White?
Mike, you mentioned that in some situations, excuse me, in some situations, you would just, you would tie in with Grand Portage, take their damage and put it all together. Is this a standing practice with the,
We've only done it once since I've been here. We did it in 2012.
okay, so is that cleared through the tribal council, or you just have a, okay, just wanted to make sure.
Yep, it was, I believe since they found this other BIA funding and they're eligible, I don't anticipate Grand Portage to go with us because the funding they got in 2022, that work is being done this summer, and they're not only doing the culverts that were damaged, they're doing culverts that potentially could be damaged in the future on a lot of BIA roads in Grand Portage. So I think it's a source that's a better fit for Grand Portage.
Okay, thank you.
I know I had a chance to travel 3 days last week throughout the county looking at damage. And the other piece that hugely impacts us, although it's U.S. Forest Service, is the boundary waters. And there's been an emergency closure, as we know, to about a third of the boundary waters at this point. And that impacts our resorts, that impacts our motels and hotels, because people stay there as they're entering and as they're departing. And so it does have a huge impact on our business community, and I think we need to take that into consideration as well. But there are many Forest Service roads on the west end that are closed, and then also a large number of trails at the upper end of the Gunflint from pretty much the north end of Greenwood up to Tucker, up to Loon, up in there, that have sustained a lot of damage. So it's going to be a long time before we actually find out the extent of all the work that needs to be done. And it's great to see in Cook County that we work together to make sure that we get through this together. Definitely. Well, for the public, because of the timing of all of this, included in our board agenda, the public did not see what Mike Keyport sent out, which is a resolution he's asking us to declare a state of local emergency here in Cook County, just so that we can kind of get in the queue and start to collect the information that we need. Whether we qualify or not remains to be seen, but it starts the process. And I'm going to read that so everybody has an opportunity to hear it. So this is a resolution declaring a state of local emergency. Whereas the heavy rainfall and flooding impacted the population of Cook County and its cities and townships, and whereas the heavy rainfall and flooding event has caused a significant amount of public property damage, and whereas the Cook County Department of Emergency Management requests the Cook County Board of Commissioners to declare Cook County in a state of local emergency for the heavy rainfall and flooding event of June 2024. Therefore, be it resolved that the Cook County Board of Commissioners declare Cook County in a local state of emergency for conditions resulting from the heavy rainfall and flooding events starting June 18th, 2024, and requests state public assistance in accord with Minnesota Statute 12B.30 for any eligible storm recovery activities. So, with that, is there a motion to approve that resolution?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Storley. Is there support?
I'll support.
Thank you, Commissioner White. We have a motion and support. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much for your work, Mike. I know you're really busy, and we appreciate you taking time to be with us today.
Yeah, if I could just ask that if I get your and James's signature on that today, before today's over, yeah, that would be helpful to me. And one last thing, I won't keep you, but we are in the very beginning process of our hazard mitigation update. And on that, what we call our planning committee, I would need at least one commissioner on that committee. I'll let, of course, you all decide that, but one or more, but one for sure. If you
Well, we
could-
can have one or two at
If you
most.
could- if
I
you-
would be happy to be a part of that. Is there another commissioner?
And I would also,
Okay,
since,
all right, I'll get you on there. And that just involves some public meetings, and they're not in person anymore, they're all online, and
Oh,
so,
okay. Well, thank you very much.
yep.
We appreciate the work that both you and the Highway Department have been engaged in for the last week. It's really overwhelming, and we thank you for your service to our community.
You bet.
Thanks.
Commissioner. And Mike, if you would please send that invitation.
Yep, I'm gonna write it down right now.
All right, great.
The invitation for the.
July
Meet
1st.
and greet? Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Correct. All right. Well, we will move on to our Highway Department. We have Engineer Haas and also Lisa Storley here with us to provide us with our 2023 Highway Department Annual Report. We always look forward to this and appreciate all the preparation that you do to get ready to share this with us and the public. So good morning, Lisa and Robbie.
Good morning, Chair Sullivan. There we go. And the clicker faces this way, and I should be good. Good morning, Chairperson Sullivan and esteemed commissioners, and thank you for the opportunity to present a summary of the Highway Department's 2023 activities. Now, let's see if I can get this one to work. There we go. This slide details the department's retirements, promotions, and new hires for the year, including the retirement of our 36-year veteran Greg Thompson early last year. One late season hire, Cody Kirkide, chose to accept a different position shortly after we hired him, so that did leave us with one vacancy at year end. The Highway Department closed out 3 prior year projects and oversaw 6 construction projects in 2023. We utilized the contracted inspection services for a second year with our engineering technicians serving as project managers, and that system is working so well that we plan to continue that indefinitely. And this photo shows the contractor removing the old Junco Creek culvert on Ball Club Road or County Road 27, and I will have a picture of the new installation as we review the projects. But I just thought that was such a fabulous photo, I had to find a way to sneak it in. Our prior year projects that we closed included County Road 45, which ended up running over 2 years because last year we wanted to do the calcium chloride injection into the gravel and really stabilize that road bed surface. The Cross River Bridge on UT 46, which utilized that special town bridge money that we now have access to. And of course, our multimodal trail over by GES, Great Expectations School, which utilized a Safe Routes to School grant and MSA or Municipal State Aid dollars. So those 3 were closed early in the year last year. And now we're going to talk about our active projects. The big project, of course, was 5th Avenue, Arkansas 15. Well, you can see that they are putting down bid in the photo that we have. This was a fabulous joint city and county effort. We are just awaiting confirmation of sod growth. We placed that at the end of the season last year, and so we need to make sure that all of the sod takes, and I think we are good to go now. So we will be coming forth shortly to close out this project. This project was funded by a local road improvement program grant, municipal and regular construction dollars, a soil and water grant for $180,000, and of course the City of Grand Marais for all of the sewer and water work. The Sawbill Creek Bridge is located 22 miles north of the intersection with Trunk Highway 61. And it was funded by state bridge bonds and then our transportation sales tax monies. When we do have other funding sources and we have to have a local match, that is a wonderful option for us with the cash balance that we do have available. The Flute Reed River Bridge is located about 4/10 of a mile west of the Arrowhead Trail in Hovland. It has the timber railings that you can see in the photo for aesthetic appeal, and it was funded by a federal BROS, Bridge Replacement Off System grant, and then the local portion was funded by state motor vehicle lease sales tax monies, which the state allocated in lieu of bridge bonding because there was no bridge bonding money available. So the state has been wonderful to work with in providing some alternate funding sources. And this will be an issue in '24 and moving forward again, because there is not.
They didn't pass a bonding bill again. And then the cash bill, I think, passed the House but failed the Senate. And so we'll have to see. I think my understanding is the bridge account runs out probably by the end of summer. And so any of our projects that we're relying on that won't happen. But we'll see where that puts everything. I just found that out, so I haven't had a chance to digest that yet.
This is a photo of that replacement at Junco Creek on Ball Club Road. It's quite a difference. This was a late summer project last year. You can see the construction cost was just under $439,000, and that National Fish Passage grant, of course, enabled us to focus on improving fish passage, and so that provided part of the funding for this project, as did our CRISA funds that had come directly to the Highway Department in 21, and we have until December 31 of 2024 to expend them. We used part of it on this project, and then we are looking at potentially using the balance for some much-needed improvements in equipment at the shop facility at the Highway Department. That is an eligible expense, and we will be talking with you as we get some quotes on that. So we will be expending it before December 31st.
And I would like to comment on this particular replacement. Had we not done this, Ball Club Road would have been washed out at that point. We would have had severe damage, and so it is so wonderful that we did this. The timing was right.
Well, and I'm driving up the Gunflint Trail frequently, and the repairs, not only with the 2 culverts that we replaced, but the sag slump,
Yeah.
we are very fortunate that those were done before the flood 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Engineer Hass's timing has been impeccable. The construction of the salt sand building was necessitated by the end of our salt sand storage contract with MnDOT. We had a contract that ran 20 years and was extended 2 years by the grace of MnDOT to allow us time to construct this. The building was designed to withstand 90-mile-an-hour winds. Unfortunately, it failed with winds at a lower velocity this spring. Engineer Hass and County Attorney Hicken are working with the manufacturer on resolving the canopy failure. In order to maximize our annual CASA maintenance allotment, which we always run beyond in terms of maintenance on our CASA routes, the department has begun utilizing part of our construction allotment for striping and also for crack sealing. And so last year we striped half of the Gunflint Trail, and then the remaining half will be striped this year. It's part of that collaborative striping contract where St. Louis County administers it for us, and we pay a $1,000 administrative fee, and basically all we have to do is pay them twice, once when the contract is let and once when it's closed. And they oversee all of the paperwork. So it has been a real boon for us because we get a very competitive price, something that we wouldn't get without that, I don't believe.
Correct. I think last year we came in under the state average for costs of stripes. So, it's a small amount, but it makes a big difference.
And now we're going to talk about the work of our maintenance crew, and I just put a couple of photos up there to capture some of the different activities that they have to do depending on the time of year. We always provide a little information on the key things that the public sees. So the crew plowed for the last time in the spring on April 30th of 2023, and then the first time in the fall on October 28th. And usually it's anywhere from that late October to the first week of November when we have the first plowing, just depending on what happens. You'll see the spring road restriction information for 23 there. In 22, we implemented road bans on March 21, and then we lifted them beginning on May 17th, with the last lifted on June 22nd. And I find it interesting, there's very little variance from year to year. I think 15 days is about the biggest variance I've seen from one year to the next. We did a lot of crushing last year because in 2022, we made the decision to do a lower crushing. We only crushed 6,000 cubic yards at the cost of $790 a yard. And then we took $59,000 and swung it to the 23 budget in the hopes that we would save money, and we did drop to $735 a cubic yard. So it did make a difference to have a larger volume, and we will be discussing how we want to do that moving forward, so that we can get the biggest bang for our dollar. And then in 22, we did use our winter salt stockpile because we knew we had to get it out of MnDOT. We tried to have some basically in the bank or in the building, so that if we do have a bad winter, we do have an extra stockpile we can mix with local sand. But we did use that up in 22. So in 23, we did have to purchase, and the cost of that has gone up significantly. You can see it was $86.71 a cubic yard. Our purchase of the sand has remained steady. We haven't seen a change in that, although it did go up significantly 3 years ago. So since then, it's held. We ordered our board-approved tandem axle plow truck is scheduled in 2023, but as with the 21 and 22 orders, fabrication is delayed. We finally got the 21 order
A couple months ago?
a couple months ago. I wanted to say March, but I wasn't sure if I was remembering correctly. So they are that far behind. In fact, the manufacturers had to come back and do a significant price increase on the state contract to even deliver the truck to us. And so a truck that used to run about $260,000, that's with the custom, or not custom, but the manufactured plow and sander and everything added, wing, underbelly if needed, is now running that 21 order came in at $322,000. That's how significant the price increase was in 3 years. Wow. So we've really had to adjust our budget because of those unanticipated cost increase. And then we did pay for the plow and sander on unit 4225, which arrived in at the end of 22. We paid for part of that in 23. We just like to let you know. And so here's what we actually purchased in 23. We had a lease payment on the excavator. We did another one early this year, and we will do the balloon payment in the spring of 25, and that will be paid for. We bought the trackless snow machine, a used unit, which we had been researching for about 3 years before we were able to purchase. And then we bought one pickup, and we were able to basically offset that purchase with some grant funds. So that was what we were actually laying out cash for in 23. The maintenance crew did a number of flood repairs, as is shown there. And then there are some things that are listed on the slide. Work on CSAH 14 comprised ditching and pipe replacements at the intersection with Caspers Hill Road. And then they did tree clearing and ditching on 0.6 of a mile on the west side of East 14 to help improve drainage. And then on West 14, they ditched about 1/4 mile south from the intersection with County Road 60 and replaced driveway pipes in that section as well. So there was a concentrated effort on CSAH 14 to improve ditching and drainage. They ditched and replaced pipes on UT 97. You can see they did significant lifts of gravel on CSAHs 2 and 4. And in addition to repairing washouts, they had a busy summer. And now we're going to talk numbers. So this is a snapshot from the annual report. Our year-end cash balance decreased from 4 million at the year end of '22 to 3.3-ish million in '23. It's 3,292,000 and change. This is due to several factors. One is the planned use of undesignated fund balance for 41% of the salt sand building, which was over 335,000 for our share. We had some additional building improvements post-construction. We have a larger number of open projects and design fees which we're carrying right now, which will be reimbursable as the projects are closing. So accounts receivable did decrease slightly, just under 22,000. Our due from state aid increased by almost 169,000, so again, that affects our cash balance. Our allotment balance did decrease by 1.7 million. Our inventory reserves increased by $51,870 from year-end 2022. So state law requires that once our year-end inventory is calculated based on, first in, first out, and the year-end counts, we have to set aside whatever that year-end balance is in inventory reserves in case of a catastrophic failure. It's just the state. And it can swing as much as 70 or 80 thousands from one year and to the next, depending on what we do have in inventory. So this year, it went up again, just about $52,000. I always want to mention that liability categories just fluctuate at year-end depending on where the billing cycles land and where payables land for salaries. So what I really want to talk about on this page is the fund balance section. You can see there's that reserve for inventory at $642,000. We have $780,000 in change in reserve for equipment replacement because we have money for a couple of those plow trucks sitting there that we've allocated in prior year budgets, and so we need to keep that there until those trucks are actually delivered. We have our local bridge and road program monies, which we're actually going to, from now on, just to make it easier, call local project money and put it on one line, just so it's a little easier to see. We have $430,500 in reserve for this year's building, which we were hoping would come in lower than it did. We have done 2 bid lettings for the heated storage facility, and the first letting in '23, it came in at 2.9 million, one bid, and the board voted to reject that. And we did a construction manager at risk proposal and bid letting this year, and it brought it down to 2.49-ish million. So it came down several hundred thousand, but still not as low as we were hoping. And to give you perspective, it is comparable in size to the Hovland facility, which was constructed in 2018-ish. That was a $1.3 million price tag. We're now at almost 2.5 million. That's what has happened in that building market. It has gone up so much. And so our 41% share this year is going to be more in the $1 million range instead of the 430 as we had hoped, because we had allotted an increase from that 1.3 to basically 1.8 million, hoping that would cover it. And the prices have just changed so significantly that that's not enough. We talk about UT roads and town roads quite a bit, and townships. This shows the 2023 distribution based on the board-approved formula. So you can see that Schroeder and Tofty receive a few $1,000s for maintenance. The $36,082 is for our UT roads. Doesn't cover the maintenance, of course. The rest is levy dependent, but it gives us access to those special town bridge monies for the bridges on those UT routes. We've already used almost 1.9 million for 2 bridges, and there will be more bridges forthcoming. This is a quick summary of our salaries and benefits payable, contracts payable, and then that long-term lease payable. So in '24, we've made that $40,000 payment, so we're down to about 81 and change, and we have to make that lump payment next year, and we'll be done with that. We are closing out some of those contracts payable, those 5 projects that were open at year end. And then we just show our salaries, paid leave, comp time, and para, FICA, and Medicare payable by division. So we have, in the highway department, we have administration, which is the engineer, the clerk, and I. We have road construction or engineering, and then we have road maintenance, and then we have the 2 staff in the shop. So that shows the salaries and benefits for those various folks. And then this is just a snapshot from the annual report, which gives you a quick summary of the beginning and year-end cash and fund balances for the Highway Department. And so the year-end fund balance for the Highway Department is 2.9 million, of which just under 800,000 is unallocated right now. Everything else is allocated to all those other funds we talked, equipment, inventory, and local projects. We have to account for our maintenance engineering time by a quarter hour, if need be, on our roads, so that we can provide good numbers to MnDOT at year end in terms of our road program maintenance and, of course, our construction, which they review during the year. But this is a high-level overview of the three main categories that MnDOT is looking for: routine maintenance, repairs and replacements, and betterments. CSAH roads are roads 1 through 23, excepting the ones in town, which comprise parts of CSAH 7 and 12, along with Wisconsin, Broadway, 8th Avenue West, and 5th Avenue West. So those are that MSA, Muni CSAH area. And then we have county roads, and down below we have UT roads, which is the 55.11 miles of county roads that have been designated as UT roads. Really, the numbers I want you to see, if you look at the cost per mile to the right of each of those main categories. So for example, on CSAH, it was $11,938 per mile. In 2022, it was $10,807 per mile in the CSAH category. So it's really interesting to see how consistent those numbers are from year to year. The only one there was a big difference from 22 to 23 is in the Muni CSAH. It was more than double that last year, or in 22, I'm working in too many years, because we did significant work with school zone signing on CSAH 7. So our Muni CSAH, or MSA, was $19,860 per mile in 22 versus 23, and that reflects that special project. And then this is just a little bit more of a breakdown. And of course, in the main road categories, CSAH, Muni CSAH, and County Road, if you look at 11,0500 snow and ice removal, that's our highest cost per mile across these three categories. I'll leave that for just a second if you want to look. And it's very different when we get to UT roads. And I'm going to switch to that one now. If you look at UT roads, you can see that snow and ice removal is not our major cost. It's more of our traffic services and just smoothing the surface, because those are much lower volume roads and they don't have the needs for the high level winter maintenance that our main roads do. So we've been very busy with the change in our engineering division, making them project managers. We had 24 projects in design and construction in 2023, 10 of which are bridge projects, because we are trying to rectify the high number of deficient bridges that we do have. Our engineering technicians are responsible for the surveying for all of this work that's upcoming, and they are also doing the design on at least 3 of the projects. And then, of course, the project management during construction. And so because we have so many projects in the hopper, we do have a lot of our cash balance paying for design fees right now that will be state aid reimbursable to a large extent once we get into construction and are able to seek reimbursement. But that does affect our cash balance in the short term. Engineer Hess is trying to get more projects basically shelf ready.
You said it great, yes.
Okay.
Correct, that's the goal.
So that if some kind of funding does become available, we actually can apply, because many of the special grants need you to have plans.
Right. And like we talked about with, a bonding bill not passing, and all of a sudden it becomes very first come, first serve. If you can have everything ready and you can just say, here, done, and then secure those funds. So it takes a long time. We're getting there, which is nice. But I think in the next couple of years, we should be slightly ahead of the curve, which will be good.
Here's a summary of our 2024 budget. You can see that we had 14 million in projects. There's a list of the ones that we've had to delay, and most of that is, not most, but Mill the Hill, our biggest project, is due to federal and state delays in review. They are extremely short-staffed, especially in the federal aid office. And how long have we been waiting for plan review? Oh.
A long time, months. And, just the federal review process itself is very lengthy. Normally if we start a non-federal project, you can probably go start to finish in about a year. It's pretty straightforward. But the federal stuff, especially on the Gunflint, when you get a historical road, it brings in every other acronym too that needs to look at it, and, kind of give their seal of approval on it. So, yeah, short staffing, extra reviews, all that type of stuff affected that project quite a bit. So we just pushed it till 2025. I confirmed with our state and federal reviewers, the people that manage our grants and help us with that stuff. We're not losing any money. So everything's there. We're fine. It's just 2025 now. So
Just cost a lot more.
yeah. Good point.
And then we have the Spruce Creek Bridge, Cutoff Road, which is tied to Mill the Hill, and the Tofty Park Road projects that we made the decision to push back. Sometimes, like with the smaller road project in Tofty, there were some right-of-way and easement things that we wanted to take a little more time to make sure all of the constituents were pleased with. And rather than rush it, we are just slowing down a little bit and taking that process at a more comfortable pace for people. So those are delayed. You can see that we have a transfer from the general revenue fund for increased personnel costs coming in. The reimbursable contract services, we increased by 100,000. We're actually increasing it quite a bit more for 25 because we have so many projects in design that we are just expending more. Again, we will be reimbursed at some point. That's why it's called reimbursable contract services. We did go back to our 2021 funding level for calcium chloride this year. Really minor increases in a few categories of like $1,000 to $5,000, maybe 10. And then, of course, we had reviewed our capital equipment and done our allocation to our local projects fund. So for Q1 of 2024, our revenues were $988,000 and change, which is 5% of our budgeted revenues, and expenditures were $1.4 million, or 7% of budgeted expenditures. That is typical in the first quarter of the year. For example, in 23, Q1 expenditures outstripped revenues by $518,855, whereas this year it's $412,000 and change. So we always see this trend in Q1. In Q2, we have tax revenues coming in. Our construction monies are starting to come in, and so we see major income increases as well as major expenditures with the projects. So we are right on track. And then, just to make you smile, we had to put one thing in there, and that's an actual road sign. I mean, I thought that was fairly brave of someone to put that up.
Good Minnesota humor.
And so we'll open the floor to questions. If you want to look at the Highway Department annual report in detail, it is under the Documents tab and Reports on our webpage.
Any questions or comments from commissioners? Commissioner Storley.
Thank you. Thank you always for the great detailed report. I just have a question under weed control. Do you control all the weeds on all the county roads?
Yes.
Okay, and how do you work with invasive species?
Well, that is awesome that you bring that up. And so that is a division in our department. We've been working to develop more over the last couple of years. We were able to bring on our environmental specialist, our ag inspector now, if you guys have had a chance to run into her, Tia Parks, has been out in the community. We also have another seasonal employee this year to help her out with outreach and field work and kind of planning for all these different things. Abigail Prom, they've both been doing wonderful. Although I didn't see any of you at the brewery event this last weekend. So anyways, yes, so if anyone has questions about that type of stuff, feel free to reach out. Either reach out to me and I'll point you over to them, or feel free to reach out to Tia directly. But they definitely are, help run that and facilitate. I know we've done several treatments on private properties already. we'll just send a letter to homeowners and say, hey, you know, there's this particular species we notice on your property. It's going to take a couple of years for us to treat, just FYI. So is there anything specific or just general curiosity?
Well, every once in a while, because we're in the lupin season.
Right?
I get the calls. The county's not going to do that in the ditch, are they? Cut the lupin down. I said, well, they only have so wide of a blade.
Right.
So-
Well, so that's a little different. So we're talking mowing. Okay, so that's a little bit different. Yeah, so mowing, we try and mow all of our county roads. We have to. Because otherwise that, you know, the weeds, the trees, the grass, everything starts encroaching on the road. We've talked about this a lot at Highway Committee too in the past. Why? Why do we need to do this? And I mean, that could be its own topic of conversation. I promise there's no vendetta against lupins. I've been getting enough phone calls about that. Where, yeah, why are we, you know, we just try and do it all. We have very limited opportunities to mow and even more limited staff to do the mowing. And so we just need to keep up with that. And so, you know, the other part of that has to do honestly with our easements out there on some roads. When they're prescriptive, it can turn into, you know, maybe we're responsible for tree line to tree line. Well, if we don't mow, that tree line starts encroaching, and now we have less space to do work, to put in a ditch or to resurface a road or something like that. So, yeah, as far as the mowing is concerned, yeah, we at minimum try and get one pass on all of our roads. Some years we're able to do two, but we're a little short-staffed in that department this year. So I know they're out there doing their best.
Well, I just tell folks, there's plenty of lupin to go around.
Right.
Just go down 61. This particular area would be Sawbill and Craig.
Oh, sure, got it, yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions that commissioners have or comments? Commissioner Mills?
Thank you, wonderful report. Always good to get the updates and just see where things have been and where we are and where we might be going. Considering the, you know, recent damage we've had, I hope we're thinking about that for our projects in the future, and from the projects that have been completed, they're huge improvements, and so I trust that it's you know, we're building in that direction, and also appreciate the partnership with Soil and Water, because I know there's a lot they can do to help build resiliency for our roads and our waterways too. So I think it's all going in the right direction. I don't have any questions for you for your department per se, but I did have an inquiry from a resident asking about just flagging on near 121, the beach east of town on the highway. I don't know if you have any perspective on anything going on around there, but I thought I'd ask as long as you're here.
On Highway 61? Mm-hmm. If it's flagging on 61, that wouldn't be us.
No, right, it's MnDOT.
Oh.
I just didn't know if you
Oh.
would know better than me what MnDOT is doing.
I understand. I know the last time I talked, I know they've been doing a lot of culvert replacements east of town. I know there's more happening in like 2025 for sure. I don't know if they're going to be doing more this summer or what their plan is. So, but I do know they've been doing a lot of that.
And probably Brian Anderson would be the person to reach out to? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions or comments? Well, thank you for a great report and for ending it with a little humor. We all appreciate an opportunity to smile, so thanks so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Have a good day.
You too as well.
Madam Chair.
Administrator York.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have a visitor here today who's here for item 8B, and I was wondering if perhaps the board would be willing to jump to that item and then go back to our previous place.
I am fine with that. Is that okay with everyone? All right, let's move forward. Attorney Hicken to driveway easement to Serbus on Hovland Tower Road.
Thank you. Rich Furlong from Smith Law is here. So, Rich, do you want to come up to the microphone in case there are questions for you?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am presenting this on behalf of Mr. Furlong. His client is requesting that the county grant an easement, a driveway easement across Hovland Tower Road, or the county-owned section of Hovland Tower Road. It's a perpetual non-exclusive easement, which means that it's not just Mr. Furlong's client, the services who get to use that driveway, but it's generally available for others to use. The easement agreement that's attached is one that I've reviewed, and that's been reviewed by, has been provided to the highway department. Jay DeCou has also been consulted because I think that his work on the towers and the tower lessees are a user of this road. What else? You can see the easement and the placement of it in the last page of the submission for the agenda item. The county, as I read this agreement, doesn't take any obligation on to maintain this road at any specific level. However, the services, on the other hand, do agree to share the costs of any maintenance that's done, at least in relation to their use of the road. It's not a very highly maintained road, I'll say that.
There is just one small addition, and that's why I brought copies here. Molly, we discussed statute 28204 in relation to the appraised or assessed value being nominal, and so I added one small correction this morning. I've got a copy for everybody, as well as a termination statement in here in the event of non-use. Unfortunately, the statute doesn't define non-use. And so that's really left up to the state's, or the county or the state's interpretation. I did a quick search this morning and I couldn't find a single case that interpreted what non-use means. And so the language is almost exactly pulled out of the statute itself and says that in the event that it's no longer used by the services or their successors or assigns, should they ever sell the property, the easement would revert back to the state, which is what the statute requires. And so my concern was that if this wasn't included as it's required by statute, is why I'm kind of springing this change on you, is that it would be open to challenge and removal if this wasn't properly included. And so I just wanted to be sure that we were above board and compliant with all state statutes in that regard. I also noticed when I looked at the agenda that Exhibit A was blank. And I spoke with County Auditor Powers yesterday and just drafted the legal description of that section, because the only thing that provides ownership to the county is an auditor's certificate from, I think, 1936. And so I just drafted the legal description for the 40, which is just the northeast quarter of the southwest quarter of Section 5 out there in Hovland. So.
And just so all the commissioners are able to find it on page 2, this would be 4B, where the easement language has been added. Page 2, 4B.
4A and B actually
and B.
were added, but yes, section 4 there is the addition that wasn't included in the initial draft. I apologize for excluding that, but has minimal to no change for the county. It's just in the event of non-use.
Any questions or comments? Commissioner Johnson.
I have a lot. First of all, why? Why do you want to request an easement? What's the purpose?
There's no access to this property, or frankly to any property on the Tower Road. The Tower Road isn't a public road as of yet, and so this is actually not just something that affects my client. It affects a lot of people out on the Tower Road, and frankly in that whole section of the county in Hovland. There's a lot of roads out there that have been in existence for decades, and people have established their right to use the road, but unless they go through the court process or through this county process, there's not any legal right to sell the road, meaning that they're going to have difficulty getting loans and or selling the property, getting title insurance, things of this sort. And my client, actually, thankfully, when he purchased the property years ago, the bank sort of overlooked, the local state bank overlooked the fact that access was not there, because they understood, being locals, what the Tower Road is, which is, for all intents and purposes, as everybody in that area understands, a public road. Legally, it's not. And so there is a prescriptive easement that benefits the state over the Tower Road to get back to their towers, But that doesn't benefit any of the private landowners between the Arrowhead Trail and those towers. If you look at that statute, the prescriptive easement that the state has claimed only benefits the state. And so anybody else that's using that road is by definition trespassing.
But it is a state. No, it's a Forest
not.
Service road, isn't it?
Nope, there's a prescriptive easement over the road for the state to use, but there isn't anything that establishes it as any kind of public road. It is an old Forest Service road, you're right, but that doesn't by itself make it a public road until it's been established as such. My client, when he purchased the property, received a deed that included an easement, but that easement was just created out of whole cloth and was never established over the intervening properties between his property and the Arrowhead Trail. And so while his deed said he had an easement, none actually exists, and a title search that he obtained from the title team here in town established exactly that he had no access, legal access.
What about the other property owners along that road?
They are in the same situation my client is, with no legal access. And again, it's something that has been going on for decades, and so nobody's really challenging the idea. But if any of them wish to refinance or sell at any point, this is going to be something that multiple people are going to have to deal with in the future. And speaking with other landowners trying to get this easement for my client, there are other landowners who are considering selling, and unfortunately I can't answer that question for them because it's a legal question about their rights. But my guess is, and I haven't actually researched it, but my guess is that everybody along Tower Road, with the exception of the state, is without legal access. And I exaggerate legal because you can get to and from your property, but you aren't necessarily doing it legally. And in this case, that is what's occurring, is he's technically trespassing over a road that's been there for decades. There's also an easement in place along the road, and that's why I asked Mr. Henchy to do the easement, is back in, I think, early 2000s, could have been 2010s. He did an easement survey for utilities along the road, but that didn't include the road itself.
So when I ride an ATV down that road, am I trespassing?
Yes.
Has this been brought through the Parks and Trails Committee for their input on this?
The road?
Is there a
No.
snowmobile trail there or something?
Well, I know that area is used by ATVs, so this has come up before, and there's very few votes that I've cast in the last 3.5 years that I regret, and there was one about granting easement and transfer of property and closing down trails because we didn't go through the Parks and Trails to get input. It just concerns me. I'm not a lawyer, so thank you for being here. This stuff really confuses me and kind of makes me wary of approving something without making sure we have total information before us to see how it affects the rest of everything else. I worry about one instance when there's lots of properties on there, and is there something else we should be thinking about? I don't know.
Commissioner Mills.
Commissioner Johnson, you may have misspoke, but I believe your regret was for revoking an easement, not giving the easement. That was the rub there, right?
That was it.
So this
But
is
it had
the total
terminology.
flip. So I'm hoping that your regret would also be totally flipped on this, because it is granting more access for the public, legal access for the public over public property. The Parks and Trails Commission, I think, would be happy to discuss it if there was a trail, but it's an old road, so it's not really in their purview as much, even though it may be used by hikers or ATVers or whomever. It would not be my instinct to have it go to them, but perhaps I'm not understanding the implications, like you say.
And I totally understand. I'm here on behalf of one specific client, namely the Serbuses, but I think that there is certainly some aspect of this that could lead to a larger conversation for the county and the board specifically about roads such as the Tower Road here. I mean, it's not uncommon for things like this to exist where we have decades of use, which if if taken to its logical conclusion through the courts or through the county process like this, would lead to legal access being established, but it's, at this point, not a possibility. And so hopefully the county board or others can jump on that and take initiative, perhaps.
Commissioner Mills?
Yeah, some of the implications that I see that Commissioner Johnson, maybe you're pondering is just increased responsibility potentially down the road after this is established legal access, and then there may be a road association that eventually wants to do a subordinate service. You know, there's all kinds of ways it could go, but one of the challenges we're facing as a county is developable private property to build homes and access to such property. And so I think this is really working towards what we're trying to accomplish. But I certainly understand why there could be some hesitancy, because it does, open the doors for more, of this type of thinking. But I think it's important to establish these legal accesses and to, get more access for our private developable land, because it's rare-ish.
I'm curious, Commissioner White, being in your district, what have you heard from property owners about Tower Road and access?
It's quite an adventure. I believe that I've heard nothing. I mean, it's quite a road, people are aware of it. Some people, I think they've now gone up to Irish Creek Road, but when winter would come, they would simply park a plow truck down near Arrowhead Trail, so they could plow in, because the county would not be coming in to them, and that's how it was. That's how it is. You buy the property, this is a non-service road, and it's your responsibility, and that's how it should be. If people want to live there, and they live very comfortably there. So I've heard no complaints, just that it's a road. It's indicative of the county. We don't have pavement everywhere, so it's no complaints. Plenty of complaints, but that's how it is, so.
I think if I might touch on that just for a moment, as County Attorney Hicken touched on, the maintenance term in this is very specific in that it's only to be shared between the parties, in this case the county and the services, in proportion to their actual use. So as you're alluding to, Commissioner White, if the county never uses the road, which it doesn't for any reason, then the county has no obligation to pay for any maintenance, plowing, etc. And so the status quo really remains the same. The difference is that now my client is no longer trespassing.
Attorney Hicken, anything you'd like to share with us from your perspective?
Nothing further. I've reviewed the added language and the legal description, and I find this to be appropriate.
Any other questions or comments? Commissioner White.
So, did your client have an issue with a financial institution in regards to his property?
Yes, he's taken a new job elsewhere and is attempting to sell the property, and the sale fell through when they found out there was no legal access because no bank would touch it. And that's why I mentioned earlier that the Grand Marais State Bank was a bit different. When my client bought it from Mary Manning just a couple years ago, I think in 2021, they overlooked it because they understood that the situation on the ground was that people use it as a public road even though it was never established as such. And so the state bank was comfortable that if need be, if they ever had to foreclose on the property for whatever unfortunate reason, they would be able to go through this process or through the court process to establish access to make it a marketable property. Unfortunately, that oversight is what brings us here today and is sort of just kicked the can down the road for, like I said, decades.
It's funny that you said the sale was in 2021, because I saw the listing and I was like, oh, Mary's selling their place.
Yeah.
But I'm behind the times.
Exactly.
All right. Well, good questions, good conversation. Anything else? Commissioner White.
So is this setting it up for all the rest of the land or property owners off of that they will be required also to get easement, to secure legal services to get an easement written up for
If the county and the commission or any other road institution in the county do not act to establish this as a more public road in one way or another, then yes, the only answer will be to each landowner to continually go through this process, or for them to come together, as sort of has been alluded to, in some form of a road association to grant each other easements over the property. And of course, the county would be an indispensable part of that because it owns the first portion of the road. I suppose it's technically the second portion because Mike Raymond owns a very small sliver off of the Arrowhead Trail, but I'm currently working with Mike, Susan Anderson, and Larry and Gary Weiss, who are the intervening landowners between the Arrowhead Trail and my client, and all is going well thus far. And I expect those easements to be signed in short order as well.
Commissioner Johnson.
Can I ask another question? So you said earlier that the county could be more proactive about establishing it as a public road. Are you saying take it over as a county road to make it a public road? Or how would you go about establishing it as a public road?
I guess I don't know the process that the county has to go through to do something like that, but there are, as we just saw, of course, the UT roads and the minimum maintenance roads that the county has already established throughout. And I think whatever that process would look like would be appropriate here. Because we have so many county residents that own property and own homes in that area, there are parcels of property north of my client that were all owned by one party whose name I am blanking on at the moment, that established easements over the parcels that he owned, but the county has owned this specific parcel since the 30s, and so he couldn't establish access over that. And my client's property was not a portion of that large parcel that he owned at the time. It was the Susan Anderson property, and a lot of the property north of that was owned by one landowner at some point in the 1900s. I can't recall exactly when. He established a lot of easements over the Anderson property going north, but he was unable to establish, of course, over the county-specific property.
So we have Director Nelson with us from Land Services, historian, and has definitely some information he can share with us that will give us perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a microcosm of kind of a larger discussion that I anticipate us having. I had plugged in some money into the budget for next year, and I had already brought up to the board of having a complete review of a comprehensive plan and including transportation plans. It had been policy of the board for many decades to not require take on public roads, and so roads have always been kind of a head scratcher. I can verify that I and our office have received phone calls or inquiries from financial institutions regarding legal access and having to know, how that does impact. We used to, with the old ordinances and the subdivision ordinance and such, had allowed for properties to be created without any even review of our office, without any review of access, without any review of anything under certain circumstances. So as long as they were a certain a size or less than 5 in a row or done, we just never even had any review for them. That is one of the elements that we can review when we're doing subdivision is legal access. We can require legal access when we're looking at reviews or subdivision reviews, and we do that now, but there are a lot of properties in this circumstance, and I just wanted to say that this is, it's an interesting, kind of first punch into this type of deal where they're coming to the board for this. I have seen over the past cartways and other things, requests, petitions that have come through as well, but I expect that we're going to have a much larger discussion about this in the year to come, specifically looking at kind of transportation and the overall impact of these roads and the legal access portion of that. So,
thank you so much. Appreciate that. Other questions? All right, if not, I would entertain a motion.
I have one more question. So, this is essentially, the county has responsibility to get to the tower. I mean, that's the Tower Road. Would like ATVers could, if easement is granted, if we go through the official process of granting easement, does that then mean that as the legal easement holder, that any landowner could then stop public traffic, like the ATV people or walkers, hikers on that road, because it's like kind of theirs now? Because they have legal, I don't understand.
Attorney Hicken.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a non-exclusive easement, so whether easements that are granted across the county road are either non-exclusive or exclusive, that is going to be the question on which that answer turns. So this is non-exclusive. It's not something that the services or the people who buy their property in the future are going to be able to they can't control who else uses the road. It simply allows them and the people who buy their property access across the road.
Thank you for that clarification. Other questions or comments? Is there a motion?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Is there support? I'll support. Any further discussion? Commissioner Johnson.
I'm just not comfortable yet. This is all new information. It's a big deal, I think, and factoring in what Director Nelson was saying, I'm a type of person who needs more time to process, so I understand, but I need to really have more time for this.
Commissioner White.
And I would concur with Commissioner Johnson. Could we table this for a meeting for a month? I mean, is there a pending sale that's being held up without any action on the commissioner's part? I mean, are we interfering with somebody's life?
Probably.
The answer to your second question is certainly yes. The answer to the former of whether there's an active pending sale is no. One has already fallen through. It's still being listed by Mike Raymond, I believe, or Red Pine, whoever is in charge there of the actual sale. But unless and until this is put in place and legal access is established, there's no real way to even consider a sale because no bank will touch it, as Commissioner Nelson has alluded to.
And has Grand Marais State Bank, that's now their new position?
Yes. The Grand Marais State Bank is actually the lender that caused the first sale to fall through. They changed their position from what it was. Mary Manning purchased it with Grand Marais State Bank funding. They overlooked the access issue. My client purchased it with state bank funding. They overlooked the access issue, and they have since reverted to the new position.
So going forward, that is a requirement that even our local banks who are aware of the history of this county, and they are also going to be requiring legal easement across to their property, to anyone's property.
That is almost always the case. I think Tower Road, because of the state prescriptive easement that was in place, and like we all know, the decades of use, the bank was able to overlook that. But if I were to advise a bank, I would tell them flat out, do not invest in property that doesn't have legal access because you have no value there. And that's the position that the bank is now taking, which I think is an understandable and supportable position.
Commissioner.
But then there's the Cartway Act, where no one can be denied easement to their property.
That is the court process I've sort of alluded to a couple of times. There's the Cartway process, which is a much more expensive and extensive process, or a prescriptive easement lawsuit as well are options. There is case law out there about condemning, or the county condemning county-owned and then higher subdivision, state and federal roads. But it's a much more onerous and expensive process. And if it's the county board that ultimately decides on cartways, it seems counterintuitive to me, anyway, for the county to spend all of that additional time, effort, and money. We'd have to get Wayne Henchy involved. We have to get assessors and appraisers, third-party appraisers involved for a cartway. And this is the much simpler process, at least on paper, compared to what a cartway would be. Cheaper, simpler for everyone at the end of the day, assuming this goes forward anyway.
Commissioner Mills.
Oh, okay. Maybe we should go over the risks, if there's any risks that we're concerned about. I can't think of any.
I can't either.
Nope. I would put any risks in the, after reviewing it with Bob Thompson, he says it's of nominal value. Reviewing it with Jay DeCou and explaining to him that this is a non-exclusive easement, so the county's use of that road is not affected. We've already explained that this easement agreement does not burden the county with any additional requirements of maintaining that road. Yep, I don't have anything to add other than what's already in my agenda item report and what we've discussed today.
All right. Assessor Thompson, anything you'd like to add?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I would like to just share that what we're talking about here is a tax forfeit parcel. There is an existing easement for the tower for the state of Minnesota across the property. So when I had talked to Attorney Hicken, she'd asked, how does this impact this parcel if we grant an easement across it? And I said, with the existing easement, there's literally no impact. I mean, there is an easement currently crossing the property. And another thing I wanted to answer or kind of respond to was could this possibly be shut down? This is a tax forfeit parcel. Those are considered public lands open to public use. So the easement wouldn't have any impact on that fact, that it is a public parcel, a tax forfeit parcel.
Thank you for that. Other questions? All right, we have a motion and a second on the table.
Do we have a motion?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
Sorry.
He moved and I seconded.
Thank you.
Any other comments? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
All right, motion passes. Thank you. All right, and conveniently, Assessor Thompson is already at the microphone to talk a little bit about an abatement.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. So today I just have a abatement request that came through actually back in April or March. And this came up as part of our process of an appeal, 2024 evaluation appeal. And then we noticed that, hey, we've got something wrong on the record. And because this was a clerical error that happened back on the 23 assessment, we have a process for that through abatement. Brady Powers and I have both reviewed it. It does line up with our abatement policy under the clerical error clause. So we have brought it forward to the board, or I've brought it forward to the board as a recommendation to approve.
Any questions? Comments? I'll just comment, I went out to the property, had a few questions, and thank you, Assessor Thompson, for responding to all my concerns and questions.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the property tax abatement request for parcel ID 524520103.
Thank you, Commissioner Mills. Is there support?
Support.
Thank you, Commissioner Starley. We have a motion and support. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much.
Yep, thank you, guys.
Have a good day.
I
And
know that it's Tim's turn, but can we take a break, please?
And, yeah, I know it's.
oh,
and-
because Tim Nelson is coming forward, we're going to take a short break. We'll let you get comfortable. We'll just take a quick 5-minute break and be back to continue. Thank you so much.
I knew it.
some treats that I'm gonna bring in for you guys after the clinic.
Okay.
I'm talking.
He never turns down food.
Are we talking Tabitha?
How you doing, Jenny?
Are you okay?
Yeah,
You have a little trips out?
I did, and I actually, it turned out unusually, like, for my luck, it doesn't usually turn out like this, but I got a absolute clean bill of health for that patch they put myself.
Oh, okay.
Got a clean bill of health, that patch on there. It's all intact. They took me out the blood thinners again.
Wow. I'll go there too.
Stuffy in here.
I just checked, it is. And we have some floor fans? Floor fans. to move air
Let me
around.
check on that, that's a good idea. How much longer, Adriana?
Probably 3 weeks, maybe.
3 weeks?
Let's see, give or take.
This is number 2? So when you get to number 14, that's when you stop?
No. I think we'll be stopping long before that.
It's funny because our number 2 is the only planned one. The rest of them are just like, hey.
My little tricep is just burning. Yeah, I'm officially reinstituting treats.
Is this from the She Rides? Is that what it's
Yeah. So there are, and there are, some of them are a little dark on the bottom, but there's chocolate croissants, regular croissants, and there's co-op granola, and there's apples.
Oh,
Thank
So
you.
help yourself.
Done and done.
gosh.
Like a chocolate
Oh,
croissant?
sure.
Because there's 2 here.
All right.
Take 2, they're stuck.
I got 1 and a 4th. How are you doing, sir?
Doing very well, thank you.
All right.
Yourself?
Good. I swung by yesterday and missed you, so.
Yeah, I had another VA exam thing. You just keep on going. I got another one on the 5th of July.
Oh, okay.
And they just send you all over the place. For yesterday, I had to go down to Forest Lake.
Forest Lake.
Yeah,
Oh, my word.
which is great because they told me for 2 months, and started that one in April, that the closest place was Moose Lake. But that's too far. They can't let me go that far. And so on Friday, I finally called up
And
again.
Forest Lake is far?
That's government.
Oh, my word.
That's perfect, yeah, military and VA reasoning there. It's like, yeah, no, well, Forest Lake. It's
Maybe you need to give him a map.
Thank you.
I need it. These are good.
Holy criminy, look at this.
Yeah.
Look at those good-looking apples.
Lunch.
Wow.
It gets warm in here, boy.
Attorney Higgins brought this. I don't know what from.
There's a gal that's doing these croissants.
Tabitha Blanchard. I haven't talked to her since I learned her business name, but I'm really curious, because I don't know if you've seen the show Arrested Development, but there's a lawyer whose name is Bob Blah. And so it's Bob Blah Blah, you know, for his law office, Bob Blah Blah. And Tabitha's Blanchard, and so she has Tabla Lab, or Tab Lab, blah, something like that, Tab Blah Blah. So I wondered if it was a similar.
She started off in the coffee shop in Hudson. And now she's got this little business going.
Yeah, I've had one of her
She did an
savories.
interview with WTOP.
Yeah, my favorite. I've only had two, but thus far my favorite is the onion croissant, or onion Danish or something. It was savory and
I'm sorry, onion
And where
is the
does she
food from Satan.
where does she sell out of?
she has a CSA and then also at the
Gonna be at the farmer's market
Yeah.
also.
Are you allergic or just?
Yeah.
Are you?
Oh, it's not a pleasant sight.
No. I've heard of that allergy
I actually
before.
love the taste.
Right.
I like the taste, but it does not treat me.
Is allergic to croissants?
No, no, no. Oh, no.
Onion.
No, do I look like I'm allergic to croissants? Not at all. I love, are you talking about Crosby's stuff? Is that who you're talking about?
Tab blah blah. Tab blah blah.
Somebody else.
Oh, okay. I was
Tabitha
thinking-
Blanchard.
Yeah, there's the almond croissants with the paste in it.
Thank you for the treat. Your apples
Yeah,
are
they were great.
gorgeous.
Yeah. The apples
love
are
Bay Club.
donated by the co-op. They're organic. I might have ordered a few more pounds than required.
Are we set? We are set. All right. I'd like to welcome everyone back to our Cook County Board of Commissioners meeting. And we are about to begin item number 7, Land Services, and Director Nelson is with us this morning. Welcome.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. This is an item, this is for Red 5 LLC, or Rob Dieter, down in Tofty. It's the Tofty Commercial District. This is a conditional use permit request for a small 10-unit resort with some commercial space on there. It's basically right across the highway from the American Inn in Tofty there in the Holiday Station on that property. It is listed as a conditional use within that zone district. Basically, it's 10 small units and a centralized facility that would have some commercial space in it and some operation space in it on there. It meets all of the provisions, and basically we had our Planning Commission public hearing about this a few weeks back, and 95 notices were sent out. We had 0 comments in written comments, and 0 participation from the public came in to express any concerns whatsoever. The Planning Commission discussed it and determined that it was in line and harmonious with both the comprehensive land use plan and the Tofty sub-area plan, and recommended unanimously for approval of the request with the 2 provisions, basically that adhere to Minnesota Rules 7080, which is the septic rules, which I will just kind of say off the cuff that basically what limits most all of the development in the size of resorts or any kind of subdivisions is septic or waste treatment capacity in there. So they have to be able to meet all of the state rules and county rules and guidelines for septic capacity, and they must also, the other condition is that they adhere to all other state, federal, and county regulations.
I do have to say, I was at the Planning Commission meeting, and this is kind of a second round for
Yeah.
Mr. Dieter at this location. And what happened, if the board and the public recalls, is that construction costs and a shift in interest rates went up dramatically. He was unable to do that first project, so this is a smaller project. He still has long-term plans to work with the HRA on housing. That'll be another project down the line, I imagine. But it was a unanimous vote by the Planning Commission to recommend it to this board. Commissioner Storley, anything since it's down in your end that you would like to add?
My end seems to be popular, doesn't it? Well, I'm just happy that he's able to do something, you know. I spoke with him a while ago, and because of construction costs and interest, he has gone from a two-story building down to one story with his proposal, little restaurant and business, and then these little units. And boy, they're going to have a nice scenery sitting right there by the Tofty Park Road. So I'm glad he can do something there.
Thank you. Other questions? Commissioner Johnson.
Actually, I don't have anything about the CUP, but you mentioned 95 notices went out, which that number kind of surprised me for that area. How do you determine who gets a notice and who doesn't?
It's a legal requirement. It's basically based in statute. You take a certain, for conditional use, maybe different from a rezone, maybe different from variance. You take a certain distance from, and you draw a big circle around, and you just blanket out to everybody that fits within that has any property that touches that. We also send out to anybody that, we have a list of people that say, request every notice that goes out so they can review it. Plus, we send it out to the state agencies and federal agencies as well, so that we can get input from all of the respective parties.
Okay, but I was just thinking,
Yeah.
Bluefin, okay, all those condo units, but there's not 95, so thank you. I just wondered where it came from.
All right, good question. Other questions or comments? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the Red 5 LLC conditional use permit.
Thank you, Commissioner Storley. Is there support?
I'll support that.
Thank you, Commissioner White. We have a motion and support. Anything further? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Director Nelson.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on, or back to, I should say, Attorney Hicken. And the first item is about a quote and approve the purchase of the Pump Track Bike Skills Park equipment.
Yes, so this might look familiar.
Yes, it does, to three of us.
Yes, this was on our agenda at the last regular meeting, and there was a unanimous vote to approve this quote at that time, but it looks like we all missed that there wasn't an actual motion and a second. So I apologize. Whoever is bringing the agenda item before the board should definitely be back up to the chair and remind the chair if there's no motion. It's not something I caught. So that's why Brady and I requested that this be added again to the agenda so we can move forward with the purchase of that equipment. And we had a discussion last time, but I understand, since there were two commissioners not available for that meeting, I'm happy to answer questions or discuss it further.
I know, Commissioner Mills, you mentioned you looked at the video. Commissioner Johnson, do you have any questions?
No, I watched the
All right.
video also.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to accept the quote and approve for purchase, quote number Q271835.3 for $204,450.89.
Thank you, Commissioner Mills. Is there support? Thank you, Commissioner Sterling. We have a motion and support. Anything further? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll go on to item C, which is the agreement with Dirt Candy Design LLC for the High Climber Mountain Bike Trail.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You've heard already about the legacy grant that is going to pay for the pump track and bike skills park that we just discussed. The other part of that legacy grant is the project that was approved for that grant is this one, rehabilitating the High Climber mountain bike trail. So this trail was originally built, I think, in 2015, 2016, probably completed in 2016. And Dirt Candy, I think, was a subcontractor on that project. Just for the, some background and understanding, these mountain bike trails are all built in accordance with International Mountain Bike Association, or IMBA, quality standards, which are high, and they're designed to be sustainable. They're designed to survive high rain events without a great deal of erosion. They're designed to have low impact on the wilderness around them, but they do require periodic maintenance, and that's what this contract was designed for. Now, this project was planned long before the recent rain events, but it's well-timed at this point because the repair and the erosion that's happened this spring really is going to require some work to get this mountain bike trail back up to standards. I have just a few clarifications that I'm going to make, and what I'll do is ask the board to approve this contract in substantially the same format as the one that's attached. There are 3 changes that the contractor has asked for, which I believe are reasonable. First of all, it should make clear that on page 2, paragraph 3, when we talk about the $1,100 per day, or the daily rate of $1,100, that is per person working on the trail. This is a husband-wife team, this contractor, Adam and Micah Haryu. They're both working on the trail daily. They have a lot of equipment and, of course, capital expenses that go into that. And so it's actually, it'll be a combined daily rate, 2 people working on the trail. For every day that they have 2 people, it'll be $2,200. So I just need to clarify that language in the contract. Even with that clarification, the grant funding that has already been awarded to the county to cover this project is going to be more than adequate, according to the estimated time it will take to rehab this trail. There's a provision in the contract that if the contractor believes that they're going to need more than 65 days of trail work, that they seek a work order, a change order, so that our expenses do not exceed, or that we can control the expenses and they don't exceed the grant funding that's been awarded. Page 3, item H, I can't remember what I put in the contract, but the contractor is requesting that the time for completion of the project be adjusted to July 31st, 2025. That's not a problem under the conditions of the grant either. I believe the legacy grant expires actually in 2026. Oh, and the third item was just, I hadn't included all of the exhibits in the draft to him. I also didn't include them in the draft to you. They are all the same as have been attached in the previous contract with Dirt Candy Designs. So specifically Exhibit D is the state reimbursement manual. Making sure to incorporate the rules from state reimbursement into this contractor agreement, because we need their invoices to match what the state requires for grant reimbursement. Okay, and with all of those additions, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner White.
Their day is defined by how many hours? Or is that undefined, or?
It's undefined. Since they're a contractor and not an employee, we don't really get to control, or we don't want to especially control the hours that they work.
Okay, and so that means that it's more the number of days.
Yes.
Okay.
Other questions or comments? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the attached agreement with the changes. Attorney Hicken went over for the trail builder work for rehab of the High Climber Mountain Bike Trail with Dirt Candy Designs LLC.
Thank you, Commissioner Mills. Is there support? I'll support. Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. We have a motion and support. Any further questions or comments? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Attorney Hicken. Administrator Yorkie.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, Commissioners. The first item under my section today is discussion about planning for the Law Enforcement Center addition. As the cover sheet indicates, at the May 14th meeting, there was discussion among the board about the idea of proceeding with the addition to the Law Enforcement Center, which does not include the Judicial Center. What we're talking about here is simply an addition on the north side of the building that would include a new sally port that could actually accommodate ambulances and the squads that we use today. Currently, that sally port is too small for vehicles to fit, and the door has to be kept open when an ambulance pulls in, which presents a security threat. The project would also include evidence processing and storage space, workspaces for the deputies, and then also an emergency operations center on the second floor and workspace for the emergency management director. So the board got that presentation back in I think it was April 9th, it may have been, from BKV Group. And this project was presented in conjunction with the Judicial Center, but because the Judicial Center would be on the south side of the building and the addition for the Sheriff's Office would be on the north side of the building, they're essentially two separable projects. And so what we're talking about here is just the addition to the Sheriff's Office. Per the cost information that BKV presented on April 9th, and I apologize for my cough, my allergies are kind of bad right now. The estimated cost of the Law Enforcement Center addition was in the range of $5.64 million to $6.77 million, which did not include site development cost. And I looked at the costs as they were presented in that presentation. And they included both the LEC, or the Sheriff's Edition, and the Judicial Center. And I tried to pull out and come up with a conservative estimate of what those site development costs would be just for the LEC Edition. There would need to be some blasting on the north side of the site to accommodate parking there. And then there would be some additional utility work that would need to be done. So those exact costs aren't known, but I estimated on the high side, those would be as much as $2 million. They'd likely be less, unless there's consideration of, looking forward to a Judicial Center addition in the future. But assuming that we're just moving forward with this project at this time, I expect those costs would be well under $2 million. In terms of the steps that we would need to take to move forward on this, of course, we would need to update our financial management plan so that we would have a strategy for, for funding the project. And then, obviously, we'd also have to contract with an architectural firm to do the design work to actually have blueprints for the project. And so that's kind of where we are right now in terms of taking the next step and doing some actual drawings for the project. I talked to Brady about our options for working with BKV Group versus having to go out for an RFP. And we could we could just request a proposal from them. And if we are satisfied with that proposal and we are comfortable with the working relationship that we have with BKV and the work that they've done with us to date, we could simply move ahead and use them as the architect on the project. But I wanted to provide an opportunity today for some discussion about where we all are in terms of next steps. Again, the other thing I should mention is that we've got some turnover going on in the maintenance department, and we are soon going to be starting a recruitment process for a facilities director. So our human resources to apply to this are somewhat limited right now. The maintenance department, right now with all the rain that we've had, has been spending a lot of time mowing. They've been doing various, repair work on, as things come up, a lot of time over at the Y working on the dehumidifier up there. And so this is not something that we can just, pull the trigger on today, but I do want to start getting the pieces in place so that we can start developing plans if in fact that is what the board wants to do.
Any questions or comments by commissioners?
Okay.
Commissioner Johnson.
I usually try to think before I speak, so I'm going to put up with this now. I'm thinking out loud. So, thinking of the maintenance department and the transition and we have a lot of maintenance things that are kind of heavy right now. I'm wondering, and we've been living with a small Sally Port for a long time. We've been living with not perfect situations for a while, and we manage. I'm wondering if this is something that maybe we want to say, let's put it on a back burner until we decide, are we going with the, can't remember what you called, facilities manager, director, and how we're doing that besides, I'm throwing that out there. Like I said, I haven't had time to process, but
No, it's
I'm raising that.
Madam Chair, if I could. I think that's a great question. There is, because of our limited capacity right now, there's no real rush to get this going. On the other hand, there is work that we could be doing that doesn't involve maintenance, just starting to do some of the planning work and working with BKV on that process. That wouldn't really require a lot of manpower on our part. So, and yes, we have lived with the facility as it is for some time. There are some pretty clear liabilities in continuing to do that. So I'm not sure I would recommend that we pause altogether, but I do think that in terms of the staffing changes that are happening in the maintenance/facilities department, we're not going to be able to put a lot of internal manpower toward that project anytime real soon. But I think the planning work we can undertake, and I think once we talk to Ellers about the financing strategy for it, and have information to share with the board on that, we could comfortably move forward.
A question I have is if we were to get an RFP from the BKV group, does that hold us, or can we then go out for bid if it's not what we're comfortable with?
I suppose we could. I mean, there's no risk in asking for a proposal that I'm aware of. There's no
I just
commitment.
wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Other questions or comments?
Well, I would like to, the BKV group, I feel did us well. I mean, they seemed genuine and honest as far as comparatively. So I'm comfortable with them. Getting this started now, nothing's going to really happen with construction in this year and maybe not even next year, but to be thinking about it and to get preliminary drawings out, and then just as they did with the Justice Center, then to have the opportunity to get them reviewed, give people time to sit on that and say, well, I really can't, we need more storage here or whatever, but this would be the law enforcement personnel that would really have the answers for this specific space. And it's their busy season. We have tourists here and more coming. So I believe that to start this now, it doesn't put any onus on our maintenance people. It's an outside source, and then we're there and closer to being ready to go forward. And yes, it costs more. Like tomorrow will cost more than today, but that's just how it is. So we do it right once. We don't have to, we do it right once and not have any regrets about rushing.
I like the idea, Commissioner White, of engaging with the BK group. I feel like BKV has been just really great to work with and with support moving forward with getting some blueprints and drawings so that when we are ready, we have what we need. Commissioner Johnson.
Yeah, just made me, when you said that, I agree. Thank you for talking this out with me. It kind of sounds like Robbie and having shovel-ready projects ready to go, even if you don't can't do it that year that you Thank you for talking that out with me.
Of course.
It also helps with the community to understand, like, this is, like, you don't have to worry about showing up in town tomorrow and having the road closed because we're blasting at the law enforcement center. So this is out there. This is a plan for out there, and it might be a year, it could be 2 years, I don't know. We don't know that.
Right.
So.
Any other questions or comments?
So I'm in favor of putting it out to the BKV group and see, and I'd like to see the RFP that's going out to them, I'd like to see it.
So in terms, I think what I would do is ask them for a proposal on doing the full architectural work for this. They already, I mean, they did the master planning, so they know the scope of the project better than anyone. And so I'm not sure that there would be an RFP. It would just be like a request for a proposal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds right. Yeah.
Great.
Okay. All right, well, thanks for that feedback. Again, they're going to be, just for the public's benefit, there are going to be multiple decision points on this. So our moving forward on requesting a proposal does not commit the county to do anything. Once we get that proposal back, bless you, the board will have to review the proposal, look at the cost, and then decide. And then also, concurrently, we will ask Ellers to update our financial management plan based on some of these preliminary numbers so that you guys have that information to work with. So there's going to be, there will be a lot of decision points moving forward that will require board action before we actually do anything. All right, thank you for that. In that case, I will move on to item 9B, which is Courthouse and Community Center Master Planning. So back on May 14th, we talked, in fact, we had a proposal from BKV to look at the courthouse in greater detail and try to figure out if there would be a way that we could address some of the security challenges and space challenges that we have here. At the same time that we asked them for that proposal, we were also exploring some alternative office space here in town. And so there was a thought that, you know, there might be a commercial property we could buy that would help us address our space needs, at least in the near term. And as we looked at that, there were a number of reasons why, related to IT infrastructure, the condition of the building that we were considering, that caused the group, which included Commissioners Johnson and White, to kind of step back from that. We felt that it would be taking on a lot of additional deferred maintenance. The building would need a lot of work to actually get up to snuff so that could be used for county offices. And so we paused on that, and because of that, there was a direction from the board to not only look at the courthouse for master planning, but also look at the community center. And one of the reasons for that was it's a heavily utilized building, and it is, you know, it's built largely with volunteer help in the early 90s. It's now over 30 years old, and you know, the condition of the building is not great. And there's also, it is one of the key county buildings that is on a dedicated fiber loop. So when let's say when Arrowhead, when True North fiber goes down, we still have internet connectivity. We have a dedicated line. And that's really important for continuity of operations when we are having, you know, some kind of natural disaster or other emergency. And so the proposal that we had initially requested from BKV was simply to do the master planning of the courthouse. After that conversation that we had on May 14th, there was interest in including the community center as part of that master planning process, along with the courthouse. And so not long after that meeting, I left on vacation, but before doing so, I sent Henry Pittner at BKV an email just saying, hey, here's what the board is asking for. They do want to do the master planning on the courthouse, but they'd also like to include the community center. And so I had said, so we'll be needing a proposal on that as well. And I haven't gotten one from him because I know he's busy with other projects and he's also been on vacation for a couple of weeks. But what I'd like to do, and what this request today is to authorize me to basically work with BKV Group to establish a contract for the master planning that the board wants to do, based on the proposal they submitted for the Law Enforcement Center master planning process and the travel cost for that, and then also travel costs that they submitted as part of the May 14th proposal. I'm pretty confident that the amount of the proposal would not exceed $35,000. And so I'm asking for your authorization to get that proposal from BKV and execute it so that we can move forward with the master planning on those two facilities.
Questions or comments? Commissioner
Supposed to process. I'm not comfortable at all at assuming that the price will be for $35,000, or assuming, or knowing what the scope of work is. I believe we need to have that in writing rather than just an assumption. You're probably right on, but maybe you're not. But it's the county is responsible for the tax dollars, and this is a business, and you don't move forward with something until you know for sure what it's going to cost from the people supplying the services. That's how I'm thinking about it. I absolutely want this to go forward, but I believe that we don't have all of the information to do it right now. And so when Henry returns and can get that scope of work and a bid to us, then I'm all for it.
Do you happen to know, Administrator Yorkie, when he's back?
He's supposed to be back.
Okay.
Yeah, he just got back yesterday.
So potentially we would be able to get information from him prior to our
The next meeting.
board meeting. What do others think of that?
Oh, can you
Commissioner
explain?
Mills.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Yorkie, could you explain the difference in kind of this process versus what they've already done?
There is no difference.
Oh, okay.
It's essentially the same process.
Okay, so we kind of know then what we're getting into here.
Yeah, we do know what we're getting into
Okay.
with them, but they haven't told us what it will cost. It is doing things correctly, not quickly, but doing it as it should be done. If we are a business responsible for tax dollars, we do it as correctly and in writing. We no longer do handshake deals. This is the 21st century. I don't know if that has anything to do with anything, but we need to be responsible, and this is their job, our job. It's a business transaction.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find where the we've done this, what, was it 25,000 for the last master?
Correct,
Yeah,
correct.
and so I think it's a,
And it wouldn't be a handshake deal. I mean, there would
Right.
be a proposal
Right.
with a detailed scope of work.
And when we get that proposal and we get those numbers, then absolutely, I'm all for it.
Other questions or comments? Commissioner Johnson.
You get this look on your face.
I know, because I'm trying to think, how do I word it? Sorry. So I get, we kind of want to move, we know we need to move forward with something. So I guess, I don't know how you came up with the 35,000 instead of 25,000 like
So it was
last time.
$25,000 plus slightly north of $7,000 in travel expenses on the first proposal. So
I have 22, wow.
It was, well, the
It
first.
was 15 and then 7, according to
You're
what's in
thinking
my
about the May
packet.
14th proposal. I'm
Yeah.
talking about the LEC proposal. That was
Okay.
$25,000 plus roughly $7,000 in travel expenses. So I estimated the scope of that project was probably going to be pretty similar to this. So I built in a few extra $1,000 for, in case it's a little bit higher. The other thing, and the other reason that I agree with you, Commissioner White. I mean, ordinarily, I would want to bring you a proposal that you could say, yes, this is what we want to do. This is a little bit time sensitive because we have a roof on the community center that we've gotten bids on. And we, as soon as possible, we want to get some insight on whether it makes sense to move forward with that project this year. I should mention, we have patched the last leak in the roof, and it held up fine during the last rainstorm. So the reason that I am bringing this forward in a kind of unorthodox way is because we want, as soon as possible, I would like to get feedback from BKV on whether it makes sense to move forward with that roofing project. And so the sooner we get them on board, the sooner we're going to get that feedback. So that's my only sense of urgency about this. I mean, if the board decides that it doesn't want to provide this authorization, then I would come to you at the July 9th meeting, which we're going to be talking about because we're only going to have, I think, 3 commissioners present for that. And so, that we can do it that way, but I'm a little itchy about this just because of the roofing situation.
Other questions or comments? Commissioner
Yeah,
Wells?
for my part, I would much rather move forward. I think we have a relationship with BKV and expectations are understood. I hear the concern about it, not being in front of us. It just, for me, it's for me, I'm quite comfortable moving forward, of course. And it's been long enough, and this is taking long enough, that I don't feel like it's a rush by any means. And from my perspective, for as long as it's taken, it feels like we're dragging our feet. And maybe that's not fair either. I know, Mr. York, you've been working tirelessly on it and continue to, and I appreciate that. It's just that, it's been over 10 years since these projects have been identified, and not a whole lot of movement has happened, and that has to do with many things. So I'm not blaming anyone there. It's just that the level of my comfort for moving forward and recognizing the need is there. So. I don't see much risk either. That's another thing I try to look at when I'm making these decisions, is what is our risk here? Is the risk that, BKV is gonna, I don't know what,
Well, if BKV couldn't do it for $35,000,
They'll
then
say
this
it.
is a moot point and they would just come
Yeah.
back to us. So
Yeah.
I agree with
Yeah.
you, there really isn't a risk.
Yeah.
Commissioner Storley, you have your hand up.
There, you spoke for me.
Ah, all
But
right.
my question to Commissioner White is, do you want something in writing from BKV that it will be up to $35,000?
I want to know what their cost will be, like they did the first time around. And the first time around, it was 25,000 plus 7,000, however they worded that. And I'm not going to tell them what it's going to cost. Perhaps their cost will be greater, and then we decide if we want to go with them or not, or if we should put it out. But they should set the price, and they should tell us. And then we will decide if we want to go with them or not. Based on our experience with them, I have confidence that they will do a very good job for us, and I do trust that they're genuinely not, that they're professional enough, and they're not out to gouge us or to take advantage, but to be professional back, we need to do it in a business-like manner, to not make assumptions. And Commissioner Mills, too, it's been 10 years. Well, excuse me, the entire last building season was squandered in not putting any minimum, we did not have conversations about moving forward with deferred maintenance last summer, when the initial consultant said, here's the list, here's the importance these projects should be done in 2023, and they weren't. And the one was the community center.
But the CIP was not approved until the end of August, so.
Yeah, we've made, I mean, I think along this, every step of the way, we've been making progress. It's just, we're trying to be strategic and efficient, and that can get really slow apparently too. So, I mean, basically what the recommendation here is to authorize Administrator Yorkie, you know, to do that business side of things. And our oversight is, you know, is there as well over Administrator Yorkie, and that cost of $35,000 I think is reasonable and fair, and so I have comfort for us to do the business, to pass the, you know, the authority to Administrator Yorkie to do that contract as long as we have that $35,000, and if BKV comes back and says that's not enough, well, then we'll be back at it and talk again, you know. And if they say we can do it for that amount, then we're golden, so to speak.
Other questions or comments?
Commissioner Mills, as a paint contractor, you know you cannot have fast, good, and cheap. You can never have all three of those things at the same time. So we do not want cheap. And, I mean, if we want it right, then maybe it won't be as fast as we'd like, but we want to have it done right. I mean, that's with everything we do going forward.
Yeah, I think we're doing it right, yep. I trust Administrator Yorkie is, you know, on our wavelength here of what we're looking for and what we need and what our community needs, and understanding the scope of work, as we've discussed one or two times. That was facetious.
And, excuse me, but it's not a matter of trust. It's a matter of assumptions, or it's a matter of doing it professionally, doing it as one would do if you were actually in a contract, business contract.
Yep, that's what Administrator Yorkie will take care of. So yes, I think we're all, I believe we're all looking in the same direction here.
Other questions or comments? So is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to authorize Administrator Yorkie to contract with BKV Group to conduct master planning for the Cook County Courthouse and Community Center in an amount not to exceed $35,000.
Thank you, Commissioner Mills. Is there support?
Support.
Thank you, Commissioner Storley. Any further discussion?
Just want to point out, if Administrator Yorkie comes into a hiccup or a road bump, or the cost does exceed $35,000, we will be back talking about this. If there is no hiccup and no bump, and the costs do not exceed $35,000, we will be back talking about this. So there'll be a number of further opportunities to look at what this all entails and any adjustments we want to make there. Again, I'm looking at risk and just where are the risks? What are we putting out there or not?
Madam Chair.
Administrator Yorkie.
Thank you. And when I do get the proposal, of course, I will share it with the board, so you'll have a chance to look at it when it's available.
Any other discussion or questions? Not? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-1. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 9C is also a retread from our last agenda. I had put together a list of some of the known requests for additional resources that are going to be proposed in the 2025 budget, and the idea here, again, is for the board to have ample opportunity to consider some of the things that are coming down the pike and to provide some feedback on what the board's priorities are and where we should be looking to make cuts. And so that's what this list is, and a couple of things that are different from the last time I did, because we do have a capital line item in the YMCA budget. I did take that equipment replacement item off the list. So that's not a new request. We have budgeted funds for that. And then I did add the last three items, which are from the Highway Department. You heard Lisa Sorley this morning talk about how the price of a tandem snowplow has gone up about $60,000 in the last 3 years, so that's included on this list. There's also money proposed for a seasonal environmental worker. And then also, the last item is Robbie's proposing that we start saving money for a future additional maintenance worker and another truck. He has said multiple times that the cost of adding anything to the workload of the Highway Department would be about $400,000. That would be about $300,000 for the tandem and about another $100,000 for a person. So the idea here, kind of like with equipment replacement, is you start saving for it so that when you need it, you've got the money. And this also relates to the conversation that we're going to be having about, at the last meeting, we talked about having an extra work session for budget planning. And I did look on the calendar for a time that I thought would work for everybody. And so I scheduled something tentatively the afternoon of Tuesday, July 9th. Unfortunately, a couple of you are going to be gone then, and so that date is not going to work. So we are going to need to find another time to have that. And the reason that I put it on July 9th is that's the week before our committee of the whole meeting, and I wanted to get that conversation started so that your informational needs are met and we have time to pull together whatever information you are seeking. If we have a couple of work sessions on, say, consecutive days, then the opportunity to actually have time to provide that, develop that information, provide it to you is going to be less. And so ideally, we would be meeting sometime the week of July 8th, and then also have the work session on July 16th, and then the presentation on the general fund budget would be at the regular business meeting on July 23rd. So recognizing that that schedule does not work for you all, I guess we need to have a conversation about what alternatives there might be. And then also, of course, I do want initial feedback on this list that you've got in front of you.
So I had a chance to just look quickly at the calendar of meetings. I don't have everything. The date I identified 2 dates that were open that I'm aware of. There are no meetings. Friday the 28th, this Friday, and next Wednesday the 3rd. If commissioners can look at their calendars and see if.
So the other thing is, we are still entering, we need to get the information into IFS and then export it into ClearGov. And so if we do it this Friday, I'm not sure that's going to be feasible.
Okay, so we're going to scratch the 28th.
Yeah.
Is the 3rd a possibility?
Madam Chair, I'm gone from the 2nd to the 9th. I can make the 9th, but it would have to be an evening meeting. I would also suggest it's important to get this information out and processed, and so even if not all commissioners can be there, I think there's still value there. Granted, it's not as much value as when all commissioners are there, and maybe it's not quote-unquote worth it for staff time and the other commissioners that are there, but I just think it's important to continue talking about it and thinking about it, so would encourage that.
Administrator, you're here.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate that perspective. Obviously, from where I sit, I really would like all 5 commissioners in this conversation. So I would feel uncomfortable about having a work session that doesn't have the full board present.
Madam Chair. So the 8th wouldn't work. 9th doesn't work for me either. I'm gone. How about Friday the 12th? Or is it, that goes into a weekend, is that bad? We may be missing other committee meetings, but I
Yeah.
think this is.
I have a meeting to chair in Ely the morning of the 12th, but I could be back in the afternoon. Is that something you could attend virtually?
I'll be here on the
Or
12th.
you're back
Yep,
the 12th.
yep,
That's right.
Yep,
It's
no,
the
that
night.
works great for me. I mean, there's building committee, but this is,
And we could move that meeting if we
yeah,
need to.
this is, I'd say, taking priority.
Does it look for other commissioners?
The 12th is fine.
I just want to note, in principle, I'm opposed to Friday afternoon meetings because my brain shuts down around noon on Friday.
That's fair, that's fair.
But, you know, if that's the only time that works, let's do it.
Should we do a 2 to 4? Does 2 hours provide enough time? I have to
For
drive back to
you.
Ely.
Yeah, I was gonna
from
say, how
noon.
about your time?
So I can get back in 2 hours. I won't be hypermiling, but I'll be back.
And in the afternoon of Thursday, the 11th is not an option.
It
That
is for
works.
me.
It works for me, yeah. The 4th also works for me.
The
July
4th.
I'm
Fourth
sorry,
will be
oh, I'm such a
celebrating our
doofus.
independence.
Yeah,
I mean,
second
maybe-
through the, yes, I'm not thinking holiday, yes. I'm thinking travel. and
Does
even
that
then-
work for you, Commissioner Storley? It
July
does.
12th, yeah.
So
July 11th.
11th, I
11th.
was saying.
This is
That's
11th.
a Thursday.
Right.
Yeah, we were
Yeah.
talking Friday.
We
Right,
were,
Okay.
but he said
Then-
Thursday also, so we're checking.
Yeah,
Okay. Only for the afternoon, because I would be traveling back in the morning.
Okay.
So, and I would suggest, I've got a meeting scheduled at 1 o'clock. Could we do like a 2 to 4 or 2 to 5 session?
Yep.
on Thursday, the 11th.
Yes.
Excellent.
Perfect.
I'll stop talking until I give more erroneous dates.
And the time again?
It's going to be 2 to, I'm going to block 2 to 5,
Okay.
if that works. What?
Yeah, the 4th is totally blank on my calendar.
Great idea.
Right for the pick in there.
You were thinking you'd come to Tofty and you wouldn't be available?
Yeah. Well, I was gonna be gone anyways, I just was,
Oh.
yeah. Little blip there.
Well, there aren't many days where there's nothing scheduled.
Right,
so
right, it caught my eye.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. And I'm going to have to do some fiddling around with meeting room schedules, but I will,
We'll find a little nook or cranny.
yeah.
Okay.
Can we use the courtroom?
Um,
Is there a rule against it?
No, you just need permission from the judicial branch.
We'll find a room. We don't need to use the courtroom.
And we have to clean up after ourselves, too.
All right.
Okay.
Madam Chair, may I ask a question
Certainly.
about this process and what we're going to be discussing? And so you've got information here about, from different departments about additions.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering, I don't see anything on here about public health, and we're having a meeting, I think next Monday, I have to look at my calendar, about increasing the public health grants, which I'm not sure where we're gonna fall on that exactly.
That's not included here. This is
So-
not, it's not an all-inclusive list.
It's
Yeah.
not.
I was just grabbing some of the things that I
Okay.
was aware of, yeah.
But we will be getting a all-inclusive
Yes,
list,
I
right?
haven't,
Okay.
I know that Plowman has, that they've got a draft budget. I have
Okay.
not had a chance to go through it in great detail yet, so.
Okay.
Yeah, but yes, you will certainly
you.
get that information.
And that- I appreciate you bringing that up. That reminds me also, I wanted to ask just about the Parks and Trails request. It apparently has not been
Yes.
brought forward yet, but that was something that the Parks and Trails Commission was looking for. And,
Right, and that would be the addition of a .5 FTE, as I understand it.
In that conversation, I like to try to see the overlaps, and just if there's some efficiencies. There's a lot of changes going on, and we're talking about different capital improvements that may change the workings and just the day-to-day operations. And so, yeah, I guess that's what we'll talk about in our work session, is just some of those opportunities.
One of the things Commissioner Johnson brought up that appeals to me very much is also looking at items and prioritizing them and using some type of a force matrix. Not that we have to go through that or with that, but it gives us an idea of where our discussion points are.
Mhm.
So I would recommend a tool like that just to help us.
Yeah. If the five of you have examples of decision-making tools that you'd like to see us put together for this,
I have several.
I would appreciate those.
All right.
I think Auditor Powers had, is it like a Scrabble bag? Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe that's been used in the past.
Yes, I still have it, yes. 2 dice.
Madam Chair, and I guess I would like more details about what does it mean for an HR generalist? What does it mean for our county to have that? Maintenance, what does that mean?
Yes.
You know, that type of stuff. More details about these topics.
For sure. Yes, and I can tell you regarding the HR position, again, the impetus for this was in large part, the strategic plan and the fact that our last 2 directors have cited burnout as a reason for leaving the job. Allison Plummer, our current HR director, has worked on a job description that would kind of delineate what Kathy Polly, who's our half-time HR generalist, does and what this new position would do. And a lot of that does relate to the strategic plan, but there are also a lot of sort of ongoing things that Allison and Kathy don't have time to get to, updating policies and that kind of thing. So we can have that job description available. It's a proposed job description.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Yes.
And then Administrator Yorkie, then I'm assuming that when you'll also have the training, $3,000 for department head training, what that program would be? I mean, when we get to that meeting, just so we have those details.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because that is, I mean, that's where I was just kind of making a wild guess about what those costs would be. I put in a placeholder for discussion because training is part of our strategic plan.
Yes.
And we, to be totally straight up, we already do use funding for training. I mean, we have departmental budgets that have that. We were talking about, how easily could we pull out from the existing budget what is being spent on training, so that you would have some idea of what that investment currently is. It's a hard thing to do because it gets charged in different ways. It can be registrations, it can be staff development, and so it's not something that you can, and also, I mean, the kind of training and staff development that folks go to really varies a lot, right? I mean, some of it's just like a webinar, some of it may be like a 3-day conference that's really in-depth, say on some new legislation that affects the way Human Services does its job or something like that. So trying to bring into focus what training is a little bit challenging. I put these numbers in here as kind of a starting point for a discussion. I'm not saying we should spend this much money on training. I'm just saying we said that training's a priority, and so if we're going to enable that, we need to have something allocated for it. And so that's why you're seeing it on this list. But there's a lot of discussion we'd have to have about how that looks specifically.
Well, and could it not be that HR generalist position, part of it could be looking for free training opportunities or grants for staff development and training? You know, we need, and that's why also prioritizing these with a force matrix will help us to determine, I'm not saying priorities for the next few years, but priorities this budget season. And that maybe we spend some money on training for the 2025 year, but we put off more significant investment till 2026 or 2027. Commissioner Johnson.
Yeah, speaking of the training, I guess, having worked in the auditor's office, I know we had to go to passport training, we had to go to election training, and that was all part of the job, which is in his budget. But don't really know what the other departments' trainings, what is currently happening, so I would like that information. What are you doing in your department for which employees, and where do you see a need? What else do you need for your department, so.
Yeah. It's a great suggestion.
Yeah, department leaders could pull that together.
Yeah.
Great. Well, I imagine having 2 to 5 p.m. on that Thursday is a good idea. All right.
Are there, before we move on, are there any other questions or additional information that a commissioner wants about any of these items? Obviously, we're going to have a lot more in-depth conversations about all of this, so it's not your last chance, but.
So do you have other updates for us?
I do. Just a couple of things. I wanted to let you know that I did visit with Howard Hedstrom at Great Expectations School on Friday to look at their addition, which is, they're getting pretty close to having it done. There's still drywall work that needs to be done, but the building is up, and, you know, all the framing, all the insulation work is done. And so what they've done is they've got a second story on the addition that they don't currently need, but they built it for potential future use. And what they are seeking currently is an entity or entities to rent that space for potentially as many as 5 years, possibly even longer than that. Again, they don't have an immediate need for the space. And so knowing about that, I wanted to check it out to see, you know, if it held any possibility for use as county office space. And so did that visit on Friday and walked through the building. What they have in terms of office space is about 3,150 square feet, which is significant. They've got 4 large sections of the addition. And right now, it's just open space. It hasn't been, they haven't put up any like divider walls, so it's basically just a blank slate. And so if the county were to entertain the possibility of renting that space for offices, there are some immediate concerns that come to mind. Number one, there would be a need to figure out how we're going to delineate offices. Do we need to have enclosed offices? Because if we do, either we would be on the hook to pay for having stud walls put in, or we would need to buy, you know, modular office furniture that could be completely enclosed. That's another option. There would also be the issue of IT infrastructure. As I was mentioning earlier, the Law Enforcement Center is one of our key buildings that is on a dedicated loop of fiber that gives us redundancy if there's a failure elsewhere in the system. And so I don't know what would be involved in tapping into that line. We'd probably have to bore under County Road 7 if that's feasible to do. And so that's another kind of big question. The parking situation at that location, as we all know, is challenging, especially during school drop-off and pickup times. There's a lot of traffic going on there. And if we are using this as an office space for departments that are going to have the public visiting, that's a major consideration. The addition is on the second floor, and the primary access to it would be via a stairway on the north side of the building. There is also an elevator shaft that they are going to be, and I don't know, Howard wasn't clear on the timing of actually installing an elevator, but it would be toward the south end of the addition. And the way that, so if we had visitors to our offices that required the use of an elevator, they would have to enter through the main school entrance. And so they would not be able to go up the stairs, obviously, on the north side of the building. So that's another thing. And obviously, I mean, it would be in our interest and in the school's interest to minimize the amount of traffic, county-related traffic that we have going through their space. So, but that would be an option. Again, the timing of the installation of the elevator would impact, you know, our use of that space, of course. So we'd have to have more conversation about that. Some great things about the space, obviously, it's a lot of room, it's brand new, it's very energy efficient, so I think the comfort in the space would be very good. They have roughed in the restrooms, so there would be dedicated restrooms there that they would install, I believe. Actually, we didn't talk about that specifically. So anyway, there are a lot of variables, but I just wanted to get a sense of what the space was and how appropriate it might be for our use. And I think it has possibilities. I do have some concerns about the issues that I just covered, but wanted to get the board's kind of feedback on the idea. If there's a desire, we could schedule a time for commissioners to go over and visit it if there's interest in that. Because we do still have a short-term space need. The other thing is, you know, I asked Howard, ideally, what kind of lease term would you be looking at? And he was wanting somebody to commit to maybe a 5-year lease. And in my mind, that would go beyond what I think we would be seeking. So, you know, but again, it would be a negotiation. So maybe they'd be open to something that would be shorter term. There's room for a conversation on that.
I think it definitely provides us with some options or possibilities, but we would, you know, definitely need to look at our MIS department and get some feedback from them on what might be some of the potential costs or barriers to bringing in what we need. And we would need to negotiate a lease, because I don't see that 5 years would be what we would need. Other thoughts, Commissioner White?
Well, and then another thinking outside the box is, could we lease like they had, I think they own those temporary classrooms, but could we lease? There are companies that make portable, semi-portable, portable office spaces that they will customize an office building that they will pull in and set for you. And they have got a parking lot across the street here. And maybe that would be a temporary solution, temporary. I have no idea about costs of any of that, but.
And that's not an option I've explored, but you mentioned that the other day, and I'd like to look into that.
And looking at the cost of that, and then you just look at what does it cost to hook up to sewer and water, which we'd need, and
Oh, yes.
again, going back to our MIS department, what would it take to get what's needed over there? But that's another option as well. Commissioner Mills.
I really appreciate you looking into the options around the community, and I'd encourage you to continue, and there's other buildings now and then that are popping up, and they of course all have their different challenges. One of the considerations is, you know, the structure of Great Expectations School is different from Great Expectations Foundation. Great Expectations Foundation owns the property, owns the buildings. They are the landlords, and they rent to the school organization. And so, when you're talking about some of the operational challenges, it's going to be much more, I think, the communication with the school that's going to be, you know, needed than the landlord. Although, of course, the landlord holds the keys. So, yeah, there's just a lot of variables when you start talking school operations. So it gets complicated fast. But it could be a win-win. Yeah, it's exciting. I am a little skeptical just because of some of those challenges or concerns that you brought up. But I think it's worth looking into for sure.
What is the board's pleasure in terms of like a next step? Like, do folks want to take a look at it?
Which department? I mean, I think we're going to rely on you to help us understand which departments or what would fit best. I mean, yes, I'd like to see in there and get the tour, but until we have some kind of a more defined idea of how to use it, I don't need to see it for our use. But maybe it would spur some, you know, I'm pretty good at brainstorming. Maybe it would spur some ideas. But again, I'm going to be relying on you and the county, the department heads to really figure out what could make the most sense. And then again, having those conversations with the current tenants.
And department heads, I agree, would be key to see that space. They're the ones who, they and their staff would be working there. Commissioner White.
Yes, this came up yesterday. Which departments, how many people would get transferred over? I mean, how many spaces, how many people could that accommodate? And who would they be?
Right.
And what would we do with their spaces? And as we discussed, like, we can't be moving the auditors over there because,
The safe.
oh, there's a safe.
That was a joke. There is a safe.
There is
There
a
is a
safe.
safe.
But we couldn't move the auditors. We couldn't move the assessors. People come here as was pointed out, they get a lot of traffic, public traffic that comes in here. And that would really be kind of onerous to be bringing them into the school area. Not, I mean, that's having sat on the school board, having random public people come into near the school building, like, for security reasons? No, no.
Yep.
Because I remember denying access across the back boundary because who knows who's gonna be out there? I mean, it's very paranoid, but it's like, if you're responsible for those kids, then that's of paramount importance.
You're exactly right about that. And the question of like what departments would be over there and for how long. I'm not seeing this as like a long-term arrangement. I'm seeing this as a place for folks to land while we're doing, say, a renovation to this building. We're going to have a home for people. And so that's kind of what I'm thinking about.
Would there be potential for a MAT team meeting to have a tour of the facility and then to have those people in their roles talk about the space and the potential of that space?
I think we need to run it by the MAT team for sure. But, you know, I guess there's some bigger picture questions that we need to answer first. Number one is, you know, is there going to be an elevator that we can use? And if so, how does that, because if it's not ADA compliant, forget about it, right? So that's a big question and could be a deal breaker.
I think it's legally required by them, or I think the school, so I think that's a yes, but I don't know.
Even if they're not using the upstairs?
They're not using the second floor.
It's, I think.
Well, if they're
And I think they are, using the second floor, just not all of the second floor. But again, that's where the operational aspect, I think, is, you know.
But I think if the access to the elevator, you have to go into the school, that is a concern, and I don't think that's a good.
The principal
thing.
needs to be, or the director of GES, in on that conversation.
Yeah, I think, thank you for the offer, Howard Hedstrom, but I just don't see that space really working for county needs. Maybe we can move our maintenance department over, or maybe GIS that doesn't have as much traffic. But there's not enough space, and I just don't see it really working, and I hate to spend a whole lot of time to try to make something work when I can't imagine it, but.
James had some good pictures the internal pictures and a floor plan of the spaces that were, I got to see them, and those were adequate, like, wow. But the bigger question is, we've got the school, we've got no elevator, we've got MIS, we've got parking, but the one part that I did think of today is mixing the public with school children. No, absolutely not. I mean, no.
And it would depend, you know, if they had like a secure, or if they had like a public entrance, and then they had classrooms behind secure doors, then it could work, right? But I don't know the level of detail of the plans on that.
I think meeting with the director would be really good to talk about some of the concerns in that regard, and then talking with department leaders.
That makes sense to me.
I agree with the point that we shouldn't be investing too much time with this if it looks like it's just not going to serve our purposes. And there are some challenges for sure. So, you know, I'm not gung-ho on this idea. I just think we need to be turning over every stone, right? I mean.
And I'm making fun of you. And in case you didn't know you were doing this just now.
I talk with my hands.
I know, we all talk with our hands. The BKV group, when they come in and they get to look at and do their brainstorming and assessing, this might be a very short period of time once construction starts, and not going to happen this year. So let's just see what they come up with and tell them about that as being an option too, like, so they are aware that if you can't do it with an addition on the community center or pop-up tents or something somewhere else, then there's another option. But I have trust in them to be creative and safe.
Commissioner Mills.
I really liked what you said, Chair, about talking with the director, and it's probably worthwhile having a three-person conversation with the director, foundation, and yourself, and then that's going to clear things up, I think, pretty quick. Thank you for looking at options.
That's good.
Sure.
The last thing I had on my report today was, just wanted to note that we have started negotiations with the 3 bargaining units. We just got our notice of intent to negotiate from our 3rd bargaining unit, so we're going to be scheduling that soon. And Commissioners Mills and White are on our negotiating team representing management. And I would like to get together with the 2 of you fairly soon to kind of talk about where we are and what our next steps are, so. And then these are my hands. Tons of other things that are going on, but those are kind of the big ones.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Mills.
Do you have time after this meeting, or do we have?
I do. I do.
Let me check.
Yeah.
Where am I? Today's Tuesday. I have a 5:30 baseball to get to.
Sounds safe.
Yes, I have time this afternoon.
Excellent.
All right. All right, we now have some commissioner updates, and Commissioner Johnson.
Let's see, what did I do in the last week? Well, Friday I went to ARC. I sent an annual report out to Administrator Yorkie to forward onto the board so you could see that. Really, I just really enjoy the group of people down there and the work that's being done, and very impressed. So that's the last thing that I do. Oh, and HRA, I guess, just regular stuff happening at HRA. And restorative justice, yes, they've hired somebody. That was the other thing on the week. So we have a new case manager and a circle leader.
Circle keeper coordinator.
That's what it is.
Okay, great.
So that's all I have to report.
Thank you. Commissioner White.
That report is still in my drafts folder.
Okay.
I'll send it. Glad you mentioned that.
Commissioner White.
Well, I was at the Highway Advisory meeting, which is always interesting, and there was a lot of discussion about dust control, road, not just dust control, but it's road stabilization, because this is something that Engineer Haas should talk about. Gravel, what is gravel? It is sand and it is little stones. This is gravel, and the dust is your road going away. I mean, when all that goes away and ends up everywhere else, then you don't have your road like you should have it. So that's the real important. I mean, yes, it's annoying to have dust inside your house all the time from the road, but it's more of a problem to have your road disappearing into the air. So I will say that on the North Road and Camp 20 Road, they did some road, what was it called?
Stabilization.
Road stabilization yesterday. And they did it down the middle, I think. And I thought it was great because, as Robbie explained, it's good to put it on when it's not completely dry, and now we got to work it in. And so we'll see how long it lasts. So that, anyway, I did that. There was the AEOA meeting, that was a Zoom, and that was, I don't have my notes on what happened there, but pretty slow, just people calling. Of course, distressed about the redistricting situation, conversations about that, and that's kind of about it, I guess.
Commissioner Mills.
Probably what I would like to share most is just that Department of Children, Youth and Families Intergovernmental Advisory Committee meeting, and it's a good reminder. A lot of our committees, regional committees, that, I mean, there is St. Louis County, right, and they're bigger at times, and especially in Duluth, but the difference between rural Minnesota and then the metro, and the different needs there, and the kind of the issues that they're thinking about. So while, this department is forming and how it interacts with the other departments, it's just really enlightening to hear from the metro counties about what their concerns and frustrations are. And there's plenty of representation outside of the metro too, in southern Minnesota, and so it's enlightening to hear those concerns too. So much of the conversation thus far has been around equity and what that means, and how the state's different departments might have different definitions and or requirements about equity. And so moving forward with this department, really getting a good handle on that, and how important strong communication is as well between the different state agencies as well as directly to our counties. There's a lot of frustration when there's either a new department or a new policy put forth that the counties implement, but it comes down from the state, and it's really just this, oftentimes the state telling the counties what needs to happen versus communicating with counties suggesting these changes, looking for feedback, integrating the feedback, and then just having that, that dynamic. So it's been a really, I think, good conversation, and my impression is the state is very open to those suggestions and really soaking it in. They get it. And so there's also just going through job descriptions for the different positions in the new department. So that's not my favorite thing to do, but I do have experience with it, and it's also valuable just to get the other perspectives and to see where the state's coming from too. So, yeah, but yeah, there's, as I mentioned before, there's just 3 commissioners, myself, Sheila Cascade, and then Terrell Clark. And they have a lot of experience in the workings of human services, and I learned too some experience with AI. And so kind of a fun fact is that there is a summary of a lot of notes and meetings that was compiled together using AI, and then checked, of course, with those present for all those discussions. And it was just a really powerful tool that I don't think too many people are using yet. But
How good was it?
they sent it on, so I mean it's for my benefit, really, because I'm one of the newer members, right? And so they have hundreds of pages of notes, and so it's like, well, we should get some kind of summary here, and there's some experience on that team using it, and then it was reviewed by others, and yeah, I didn't hear how much review was needed, or how much editing was needed on the review, but I was impressed with just the speed of it and just the information that provided. So, yep, that's probably the biggest. It's probably the biggest thing I'd share.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Storley.
Thank you. Well, I'll bring you up to speed with what's been happening with Arrowhead Regional Development Commission. First part of April, Andy Hovland resigned due to health issues. So from April until last week, we had no director. So I've been working with the executive committee and commission, and as of last week, we have an interim. So we did have someone within the larger departments, which contain trails and highways and all kinds of divisions, step up to help for doing a lot of the work that we really need to do as far as resolutions and as far as a lot of immediate things. So she's gung-ho, she has a great attitude, we're all happy that we have somebody, and so I guess right now we're just going to float along with interim and see where we go with her position right now in the future, and move along as best we can. We are very fortunate in that the actual budget and commission of the financial part of the RDC is helped along by Sister Mary. And when Sister Mary talks, we all listen. And so she said that we're all good financially, and we just have to take things as they come for the next few months. So that's, I think some of you met Andy Hovland. He came here before the board. He also helped with Hovland Dock, and he's been up here with several things. So that is part of the job of a director, is going out in the 9 counties within the RDC to work with them on different projects. So not that it'll stop, it's just that it may be a little bit slower. So that's what's happening with that.
All right, thank you. Airport Commission. So this week, RSNH, which is the group out of Duluth that works with kind of as a liaison between the FAA and our Airport Commission, is meeting to talk about the master plan and what the next steps will be. And then Tia Parks, who is our county ag inspector and also works with terrestrial invasives, discovered that, as I mentioned at our last meeting, that there is a large concentration of spotted knapweed at the old airport strip down by Skyport and Double Track Lake. And so the Airport Commission approved Tia and Abby Prom going to treat that area. So they'll be introducing 2 types of weevils. The first type is one that eats the seed heads off of the knapweed, and the second type attacks the root system of the weevils, or of the spotted knapweed. So 2 types of weevils. And it takes about 10 years for an area that large. It could potentially take that long. It might be a shorter time period than that, but there'll be no charge to the Airport Commission. Once the knapweed is gone, then they'll come in and reseed that area, but it won't be mowed. But it's not mowed anyway because of FAA regulations. If it were mowed, somebody might land on it, and that wouldn't be a very safe thing down there. So anyway, those weevils will be introduced this summer. And then the one thing the Airport Commission did request of Tia is that a letter be sent to the landowners along Skyport Lane indicating that these bugs would be introduced into the area, so that if they see them on their knapweed along Skyport Lane, they wouldn't be concerned that there's some type of new thing or invasive thing there. But they just felt it would be important to let the people know that are adjacent to that roadway. Commissioner White.
So what eats these weevils?
Nothing. They will die once the knapweed's gone. They eat nothing else.
Wow.
Yeah.
How do we find them? How do we know that?
Through the FDA. Yep. FDA and the Minnesota Department of Agriculture uses them in other locations. So, anyway, we are all good. But we thought a letter coming from Tia explaining some of these things to nearby property owners would be very appropriate, so. And just to let you know, there's plenty of black flies down by the airstrip. When we met with Tia and Abby to take a look at them, we were just about eaten alive.
Any dragonflies?
There were not many, so.
I haven't seen a one.
Yeah. The other thing is that we had our legislative event here in the Commissioners' Room last Thursday, an opportunity to thank both Senators Murphy and Hoschild for their tireless work and for the help that they provided Cook County, and to talk a little bit about future needs. So that was very well attended. And then, again, just storm damage, continuing to travel around and get information from businesses and residents about what they need and how we can help. And one of the things I noticed, and I will talk to Mike Keyport at a later point, but the St. Louis County website actually put out information on their homepage about storm damage repair guidelines, and that some of the repairs require building permits. And just information for the public that I thought was very, very good. So it's something we could do for the future to make sure that it's more accessible for the public. And lastly, a reminder, we had a discussion about electronic calendars, and that we'll try to keep track of the time commitment that commissioners are making with not only their meetings here, but all the other committees and commissions and boards that you participate in. So if you could either share your electronic calendar with me, which is just, as Commissioner White knows, there's a little plus at the top of the electronic calendar, and it will go automatically to me. If you are more comfortable printing out copies and getting them to me, that's fine. But we said at the end of 6 months, which would be June 30th, so that's coming up in the near future. And we have a number of meetings coming up. A reminder that we have our Appeals and Equalization this Thursday at 6 p.m. Reminder for everybody to kind of review your binder or electronically the manual and all the information that's in there, so that we're prepared to work with Assessor Thompson on that evening. And then we have correspondence and memos listed. And with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Thank you,
Everybody's
Commissioner
so
Storley.
bashful.
And is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Commissioner White. We have a motion and a second to adjourn. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you.
So you're at negotiations meetings. I've been meaning to talk to you about this, but if you noticed right now, and for the crew in the highway department,
That hasn't been, none of that's been decided.
I think it needs to be discussed during negotiations because they are very, very generous.
We should go, yes.
And I'm